Chapter 461 to the Sword Domain. Grandpa, don't worry, I can handle my own matters. I really don't take the Phoenix Perch Empire seriously. Hearing Su Zimo say that, Wanren Jingshi still seemed a bit uneasy. After thinking for a moment, he handed Su Zimo a talisman. He instructed, if you encounter danger, activate this. Su Zimo smiled and nodded. The next day at dawn, he bid farewell to everyone and left. His goal this time was to fulfill his promise to the sword immortal Jiang Yun and to get information about the Void Spirit Monkey. Jiang Yun's family was in the Sword Domain. Speaking of the Sword Domain, it was located at the northernmost edge of the northern continent. It was an independent power and territory. Though the 36 empires were the strongest force in the northern continent, there were still many hidden powers quietly growing. Back then, the sword immortal Jiang Yun roamed freely across the northern continent. Even the monarchs of the 36 empires treated him with great respect and awe. He was the first in history to challenge a grand emperor with the strength of the immortal path. His actual strength was comparable to a grand emperor's. But in terms of martial influence, he opened a new path for all immortal cultivators on the continent. His achievements surpassed those of emperors. Long ago, people believed those on the path of immortality were weaker than those on the path of Tao. It was Jiang Yun who proved otherwise and changed this perception. To battle against the heavens was a joy in itself. Any path, if pursued to the extreme, had its own meaning. In Jiang Yun's era, walking the immortal path started an entire era. This was unprecedented, no one had done it before. As for whether anyone would follow, immortal god Yu Qingli might count. During that time, the entire primordial heartlands experienced a sword cultivation craze. The northern continent was especially fervent. Later generations studied how Jiang Yun could stand against a grand emperor, and many believed it was because of his strong swordsmanship. So countless people began learning the sword, hoping to become the next sword immortal. After all, there's only one heaven's will to contend for. If the immortal path could match the Tao path in power, why struggle in the brutal fight for heaven's will? As more people gathered around Jiang Yun's family in the northern continent, Jiang Yun and his family willingly taught them swordsmanship. Eventually, centered on the Jiang clan, a 1,000-mile region formed, comparable to the size of a vast empire. It became known as the Sword Domain, paradise for swordsmen, and the Jiang clan ruled it. During his time at his grandfather's home, Su Zimo had learned some things about the Sword Domain. After Jiang Yun ascended to the upper world of the outer heavens, the Jiang clan remained at the top for several generations but eventually began to decline. Several powerful forces rose within the Sword Domain, capable of rivaling the Jiang clan. This state lasted for a while until a few hundred years ago, when the Jiang clan suddenly disappeared overnight. They vanished into thin air. No members remained. Even the Jiang clan's estate became a wasteland. It was as if everyone woke up and the once powerful Jiang clan had never existed. The matter was bizarre, and there were many theories about the disappearance, but no clear answer ever emerged. Now, the Sword Domain was in chaos with multiple forces fighting over the land. Su Zimo's first destination was Myriad Sword City. It was the outermost city of the Sword Domain and the only one with a teleportation array. Things seemed a bit messier than expected, but Su Zimo didn't care about the Jiang clan's internal affairs. As long as there were any descendants left, he would hand over Jiang Yun's legacy to them. The teleportation array to Myriad Sword City was in Phoenix Heaven City. It wasn't far from Phoenix Wing City. Su Zimo summoned the Dark Sky Tiger, lay on its back, and slowly made his way along the ancient road toward Phoenix Heaven City. In the peak of summer, the sun hung in the sky like a blazing fireball. It scorched the earth, and the trees on both sides of the road drooped listlessly. The sound of cicadas in the distance added to the irritating heat. The Dark Sky Tiger walked slowly along the path until a certain stretch of road was reached. There, a sharp, killing flute melody drew Su Zimo's attention. He looked up and saw a man standing calmly atop a giant tree on the left, balancing on a leaf while playing a flute. The melody was filled with thick killing intent, almost tangible, spreading across the entire road. Even the cicadas fell silent. Su Zimo looked at the man. He wore a black robe and a pure black mask. There were no designs on the mask, just pure blackness. As the dark sky tiger approached the tree, it too seemed to sense the killing intent and stopped moving. Su Zimo stepped off its back. The moment his feet touched the ground, the man above slowly lowered the flute. The chilling melody ended abruptly. "Did Ji Yunzu send you?" Su Zimo asked with a smile. "Join the Empire or I'll kill you. Pick one," the man in black said calmly. "You want me to join the Empire?" Su Zimo laughed. "Ji Yunzu really is generous, huh? So you've chosen not to?" the black-robed man said, and his aura began to rise. In an instant, an overwhelming force descended upon Su Zimo. God Meridian Realm Cultivator. Su Zimo instantly sensed the strength. He shook his head with a smile and said, "Where did you get the confidence to think you could kill me? Just because you're in the God Meridian Realm? Not enough to reach the apex." The man in black frowned slightly as he looked at Su Zimo. When his divine aura pressed down, it felt like a mysterious force blocked it. It was like spring snow meeting summer sun. It vanished instantly without a trace. "I don't believe you're also in the God Meridian Realm," the man said flatly. He didn't believe someone Su Zimo's age could be on the same level. After all, the further along the cultivation path, the harder it was to advance. "Haven't you heard? True geniuses can fight above their realm." Su Zimo smiled. As he finished speaking, he waved his right hand, and a spiritual energy arrow shot out. With a crack, a mirror hidden in the sky shattered. "I don't like having rats watching when I fight," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. At the same time, in the royal palace of Phoenix Wing City, an identical mirror shattered in front of Ji Yunzu. He slapped his dragon throne in anger, his brows tightly furrowed. Chapter 462, Realm Demon Takes Form. Watching the mirror shatter, Ji Yunzu's expression turned grim. This was a void mirror, capable of projecting scenes from thousands of miles away into the mirror. Su Zimo gave him a strong sense of threat, yet he couldn't see through him at all. Ji Zhouqing was the most suitable candidate in this generation to fight for heaven's will within the Empire. There couldn't be any slip-ups, so Ji Yunzu wanted to clear every obstacle in the way. Even if it meant offending the true martial sacred ground and sending someone to kill Su Zimo. But now, a bad feeling was rising in his heart. On the scorching ancient road, the black-clothed man's face was hidden behind a mask. Wearing all black, his aura was sharp and cold. "Die painfully amidst the music. Your life will end in mourning and sorrow." The man slowly raised his long flute and began to play. The moment the music began, Su Zimo immediately sensed something was wrong. The flute carried a unique power. Su Zimo could feel the spirit force in his body growing chaotic. It started to surge violently, rushing through his veins and meridians, as if it was going to burst his body from the inside. The music had a strange magic to it, accompanied by the pressure of a God Meridian Realm Cultivator. His attack was like a storm. Behind him, his true fate appeared. It was also a flute formed of spirit force. As the sound spread, the surrounding trees couldn't withstand the pressure. They split open from their trunks. Birds flying by exploded into blood and flesh. The music became more intense, rising higher and higher. Finally, as the flute sounds surged in from all directions towards Su Zimo, he felt like his blood was flowing in reverse like a raging river. The blood vessels beneath his skin bulged and looked ready to burst. He looked up slightly and smiled, slowly pulling out the Shadow Tyrant's sword from his back. He had killed God Meridian Realm cultivators before. The blade rang softly. A massive wave of sword intent burst out from the Shadow Tyrant. Su Zimo stepped into the air. Gripping the sword with both hands, he raised it above his head and brought it down with force. The space around them split open, forming a path. A powerful beam of sword energy fell from the sky with a thunderous boom. Seeing this, the black-clothed man did not dodge. He kept playing the flute seriously. The flute sound seemed to generate waves of sword intent that collided with Su Zimo's sword energy. Another loud explosion followed. A wide chasm split open on the ground between them. The black-clothed man looked at Su Zimo in surprise. He hadn't expected him to not only withstand the music but still have enough strength to counterattack. "You're still far from enough," Su Zimo said, eyes closed. As streams of space energy surged around him, he drew a line in the air with his right hand. Realm Demon. As his hand fell, the surrounding space took on a distorted feel. Nothing seemed to have changed, yet everything felt off. As the black-clothed man played his flute again, the same melody echoed from Su Zimo's side. Two identical flute sounds clashed, canceling each other out. "Space folding or something else?" the black-clothed man said, his tone serious. He placed his hands on the space in front of him. From what his eyes told him, there was less than 10 meters between them. But in reality, it felt like they were on different dimensions. He refused to believe it. He played a different melody this time. But no matter what tune he played, the same sound would echo back from the other side. "Your mastery of space is incredible," the black-clothed man said, clearly shaken. He realized the surrounding space was like a folded mirror. No matter what attack he launched, it would be mirrored back at him. Su Zimo didn't even need to lift a finger. This was one of the effects of the Tao of space. But to achieve this, one needed an almost insane level of understanding and control over space. Especially since his flute music wasn't a simple attack, it shouldn't be so easily mirrored. To break this move, one would need overwhelming power to shatter the folded space. The black-clothed man had tried just now. He didn't have that kind of strength. At the very least, one would need to be an immortal and break through the 9th Meridian Gate. That meant Su Zimo now stood in an invincible position. "No wonder you're so fearless," the black-clothed man snorted coldly. "You're wrong. My fearlessness isn't because of my space power," Su Zimo said, shaking his head. With a wave of his hand, a different kind of aura began to spread from his right hand. Plague Demon. This aura was similar to death energy, but its power was tens of thousands of times greater, because it could bypass all defenses and strength to directly strip away life. "What is this?" the black-clothed man cried out in panic and tried to escape, but Su Zimo locked down the surrounding space. Just as the man broke through the spatial seal, the gray aura struck his back. As the aura entered his body, panic spread across the black-clothed man's face. The pure black mask on his face cracked with a snap and broke in two, revealing a gloomy, ordinary-looking middle-aged face. A face so plain it would disappear in any crowd. "What did you do?" the man cried out. "You'll find out soon," Su Zimo smiled calmly. As the gray aura spread through his body, the black-clothed man became frozen in place. His face turned from normal to waxy yellow, then pale white. Wrinkles deepened, and his features aged rapidly. From a middle-aged man to an uncle, then within moments, to an old man on the verge of death. "What's happening to me?" the man shouted in horror. "What are you trying to do? As the first person to die to Demon, you should feel honored," Su Zimo said coldly. The man's skin worsened, his aging accelerated. His life force was rapidly drained. Eventually, his lifeless body collapsed to the ground. His corpse rotted, leaving only bones. The bones turned to dust and scattered in the wind. "This move really is overbearing," Su Zimo said to himself, clearly satisfied, to forcibly extract someone's life force. But with his current control and strength, it likely wouldn't work on an Immortal Path opponent. He glanced back in the direction of the Phoenix Perch Empire, then sat back onto the Dark Sky Tiger and headed for Phoenix Heaven City. Chapter 463 Sword Tower. By evening, Su Zimo arrived in Phoenix Heaven City. It wasn't a particularly large city. Its prosperity was average. He rested in the city for a night, and the next day, used the teleportation array to head toward Myriad Sword City. After spending a long time in spatial transit, Su Zimo felt drowsy along the way. Finally, after half a month, he arrived at the northernmost edge of the northern continent, the entrance to the sword domain Myriad Sword City. This city had a highly structured architectural layout. From a distance, The whole city looked like a sword shooting into the sky. Because in the center of the city stood a towering building, people referred to it as the sword's tip. Other buildings were built around it, which made the city resemble a sword. Su Zimo walked into Myriad Sword City. Here, 9 out of 10 people used swords. The sword was the only weapon in the sword domain. Unless someone was a martial artist from outside, local warriors either wore a sword at their waist or carried a 3-foot-long blade on their back. There were powerful single swords, mysterious dual swords, and lightning-fast swords. A swordsman must have an edge, rather break than bend. Be unyielding, fearless, and only then can one reach the other side of the sword path, thus achieving sword mastery. This inscription was carved on green bricks near the city gate. It was said to be advice left behind by the sword immortal Jiang Yun. Myriad Sword City was considered a large city. The tall central building was called the Sword Tower. The people here were so obsessed with swords that, as long as one chose the sword as their weapon, they could receive a free sword from the tower simply by presenting their identity. Su Zimo booked a room at an inn inside the city. When night fell, he entered his True Fate world. At this point, not much had changed in his True Fate world. The only major change was the purple flower he had brought in before. Now absorbing power from the god world, it had grown more and more different from its original petal shape. 6 petals leaned together, forming a circle. The petals were now gradually evolving into black holes. These black holes contained 6 different kinds of laws. Though Su Zimo didn't fully understand them, the flower had become increasingly strange. After cultivating overnight in the god world, he left the inn at dawn. Zhang's family originally ruled in the sword domain's Overlord Sword City. According to the route Su Zimo had, if he headed east from Myriad Sword City, he would pass through the location of Overlord Sword City. Just as he stepped out of the inn, he noticed that the city had suddenly become much livelier. People in the center of the city were all heading toward the sword tower. Su Zimo hadn't planned on getting involved, but just as he was about to leave, the fragment of the true god sword inside his True Fate world suddenly reacted. Su Zimo had always relied on luck to find the fragments, never actively seeking them. He had previously found a piece in the Dark Corner capital, another in Bluestone Valley, and one in Buddha Reverence City. He now had 3 fragments. Only 2 more were needed to forge the complete True God Sword. He also wanted to visit the celestial court built by the flower cultivator to uncover secrets from the end of the legendary era. The fragment was reacting from within the sword tower. Su Zimo frowned slightly, then decided to follow the crowd. The sword tower stood at the city's center. It was the city's iconic landmark. From a distance, it was just a silhouette. But once Su Zimo approached, the feeling was overwhelming. The tower rose into the sky, almost piercing the heavens. It was tall and imposing. Its shape was that of a sword, sharp and exuding sky-reaching sword intent. The tower was purple-blue in color, over 100 floors high. The architecture had a sense of masterful craftsmanship. A large crowd had gathered around the tower. Nearly half the city seemed to be here. "Brother, can I ask what you're all gathered here for?" Su Zimo asked a man nearby. "You're from out of town, aren't you?" The man looked him up and down. His gaze landed on Shadow Tyrant on Su Zimo's back, and he confirmed his guess. "Yes." Su Zimo nodded, not denying it. "Today is the day the sword tower opens. We're all here to learn sword arts." The man gave a simple explanation, and Su Zimo finally understood. The tower contained countless swords and sword techniques. It basically collected everything related to swords. Every year, the sword tower opened once. Any sword cultivator could enter and study techniques. Each person had one lifetime opportunity to enter and receive a sword for free. In an era where sects hoarded their martial arts and defended their secrets, the sword tower's selfless spirit had earned it widespread support, especially from wandering cultivators. Speaking of which, one had to mention the current power structure in the sword domain. Since the Sword Immortal Jiang clan disappeared, only 3 truly powerful sects remained: Sword God Realm, Heavenly Sword Gate, and Swordless Mountain. Of course, these were the most powerful on the surface. But in truth, the most transcendent force had always been the Sword Tower. The Sword Tower stood above the entire sword domain, with 7 branches and 1 main headquarters. The Sword Tower in Myriad Sword City was one of the 7 branches. Its purpose was to spread the path of the sword. It never involved itself in worldly conflicts. Unless their core principles were violated, they didn't interfere. Some suspected that the Sword Tower was actually the strongest force in the entire sword domain. At that moment, as the crowd in front of the Sword Tower grew larger, a white-robed man flew out from within. He wore all white, his skin pale like snow. A white longsword was strapped to his back. His body emitted a faint sword intent. This wasn't something he actively released. It naturally flowed out, yet one could already sense its overwhelming sharpness. His sword intent was pure. That was Su Zimo's first impression. Only someone who focused solely on the sword and had no other distractions could comprehend such pure sword intent. A flash of sword intent flickered in the man's eyes as he calmly looked at the crowd. He said, "The Sword Tower will be open for 3 days. What you gain inside depends on your own fortune. There is only one rule: no fighting, no disturbing others, no wanton destruction inside the Sword Tower." "We understand," the crowd below responded in unison, performing the sword salute. "You may now enter. You will be forcibly removed after 3 days," the white-robed man said sternly. Chapter 464, Hong Tianfu. As soon as the white-robed man finished speaking, the dense crowd automatically split into 3 long lines. Everyone started queuing up in an orderly fashion, each heading toward one of the 3 gates of the Sword Tower. Su Zimo asked around and learned that each of the 3 gates had a different purpose. The first gate was for selecting a personal sword. The second was for learning sword techniques. The third contained rare items related to swords. After thinking it over, Su Zimo decided to enter the first gate. As he approached the entrance, a man in a yellow robe stood at the gate distributing identity tokens. "Place your right hand on this stone," the man said to Su Zimo. Su Zimo recognized the stone. It was a memory stone, commonly used to record information. Since every person was allowed only one opportunity in their lifetime to receive a sword from the tower for free, the stone would record their data to ensure no repeat claims. When Su Zimo placed his hand on the memory stone, it emitted a faint white light and conjured an identity token. "This is your token. Whether or not you find a sword, you'll be forced out after 3 days," the man in yellow said flatly. Su Zimo nodded, signaling that he understood. When he walked through the first gate holding the token, everything ahead turned pitch black. He felt a force pulling his body into another space. Su Zimo didn't resist, and soon, his vision cleared. He found himself in front of a castle. He wasn't the only one there. Many other young people had also come to find their swords. Listening to the whispered conversations around him, Su Zimo learned more. All the swords were kept inside the castle. It had 9 floors. The quality of swords varied, some were universe level, some heaven grade, and more. Any sword could be claimed for free, as long as it acknowledged the person as its master. As Su Zimo approached the castle, he could clearly feel the true God sword fragment inside his body vibrating more intensely. The castle was built in a medieval architectural style. The top had 3 oval domes and was dark brown in color. There were 9 floors with dozens of windows and balconies around each level. The castle had 4 entrance doors, 1 in each direction. Su Zimo followed the crowd and entered through the east gate. As soon as he walked inside, his field of vision expanded significantly. He saw countless racks lined with densely packed swords. Even the walls were hung with all kinds of swords. They came in different shapes and styles. Everything imaginable was here. Upon closer inspection, Su Zimo noticed that all of these were ordinary weapons, like iron swords forged by mortal blacksmiths, not suitable for cultivators. "Friend, keep moving up. The swords on the first floor are useless," said a young man in green robes beside him. "The higher you go, the better the sword quality. But it also gets harder." "Is this your first time here?" Su Zimo asked. "Everyone here is a first-timer. But I did my research before coming. The young man laughed. My name's Hong Tianfu. May I ask your name? Su Zimo. Su Zimo nodded in return. Are you here alone? Hong Tianfu asked again. I am. Why? If you don't mind, we could team up. That way we can look out for each other, Hong Tianfu suggested. What's the point of teaming up? Su Zimo asked, puzzled. There's something you might not know. As we go higher, the swords will be protected by sword spirits, Hong Tianfu explained. According to the Sword Tower's rules, each sword has a guardian spirit. You must defeat the spirit to claim the sword. But fighting the sword spirit doesn't need two people, Su Zimo replied with a smile. Still, you'll need someone to watch your back during the battle. And I'll need the same, Hong Tianfu said. Su Zimo thought for a moment and agreed. Not because he needed help, but because it'd be useful to have someone familiar with the tower. The two chatted as they headed toward the second floor. Su Zimo learned that Hong Tianfu was a lesser son of the Hong clan in Myriad Sword City. Hong was frank. He'd come to the Sword Tower out of desperation, as he was constantly sidelined by his family. On the second floor, Su Zimo noticed a big change in layout. Instead of open racks, there were now sealed display cases. Inside each case were many swords, each labeled with a brief description. They didn't stay long. Hong Tianfu seemed to know exactly where he was headed. He was looking for a sword on the 7th floor. Su Zimo, on the other hand, was searching for the true God sword fragment, so he decided to accompany him all the way up. When they reached the 7th floor, the scenery changed again. They were now in a dense forest. The trees here were sword trees. Their shapes closely resembled swords, and they bore fruit called sword fruits. Each sword fruit seemed to represent a sword. Hong Tianfu searched carefully, examining nearly every sword fruit. Eventually, he stopped at one tree. After observing it closely, he smiled and said to Su Zimo, I'm going to pick this sword fruit. I hope you'll guard me. Make sure no one interrupts. Su Zimo nodded without saying much. Hong Tianfu grasped the sword fruit, and his consciousness entered the world of the sword spirit. His expression became tense. His brows furrowed and relaxed repeatedly. He was frozen in place. Su Zimo hadn't expected anyone would try to interfere. After all, the white-robed sword cultivator had clearly stated earlier, no one may disturb or attack others inside. However, shortly after Hong Tianfu began battling the sword spirit, Su Zimo sensed three figures approaching. At first, the three wandered aimlessly, pretending to stroll. But as they got closer to Hong Tianfu, they suddenly unleashed their aura and attacked from three different directions. Su Zimo frowned. These three weren't strong in his eyes. With spirit force gathered in his right hand, he casually swatted them away with a single palm strike. The moment they flew off, ripples appeared in the sky, and the white-robed sword cultivator from earlier tore through space and reappeared instantly. Chapter 465 Broken Sword. The elder's sword intent erupted around him. Before the three men even hit the ground, they were shattered into dust by the sword energy. Those who fight without reason die. The white-robed sword cultivator floated with his robes billowing, sword energy radiating fiercely as he looked around at everyone. Then his gaze turned to Su Zimo, and he said, You were protecting your companion and forced to act. That doesn't count. After speaking, the white-robed sword cultivator vanished into the void. Su Zimo guessed that the man was likely hidden in the void, watching everyone inside the tower. If anyone broke the rules, he would instantly strike to eliminate them. But that wasn't foolproof. If Su Zimo hadn't intervened just now, Hong Tianfu might have been seriously injured or even killed. It seemed Hong Tianfu knew someone might come for him, which is why he chose to team up with Su Zimo in the first place. After a while, Su Zimo could feel Hong Tianfu's aura changing. The sword fruit in front of him slowly cracked open, and from inside grew a black sword. The sword was sleek and glowed with a dark shine, a thin blade with a concealed edge. Hong Tianfu slowly opened his eyes and took a deep breath, but couldn't hold back a mouthful of blood. You okay? Su Zimo asked. I overestimated myself. These sword spirits are really powerful. Hong Tianfu shook his head and smiled. But being able to get this black sword was worth it. He held the black sword in his hand. It seemed alive and gave off a faint hum. By the way, did anyone try to kill me just now? Hong Tianfu asked. 3 people, Su Zimo said. Thanks. I owe you one. Hong Tianfu fell silent for a moment. His expression turned gloomy, and as if thinking of something, his eyes became deep and sharp. He gripped his sword tighter. Who wants you dead? Su Zimo asked. I'm a lesser son of the Hong clan. I'm not favored, but by the rules, I still have a chance to become the patriarch. Hong Tianfu smiled. If I die, who do you think benefits most? Power struggles are boring. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and dropped the topic. I used to still hold some hope, Hong Tianfu said. But now that they've openly tried to kill me, there's no reason not to tear off the mask. He laughed and shook his head. Enough about me. Where do you want to go next? I'll go with you. You're very familiar with the sword tower? Su Zimo asked. I did my homework. I know pretty much everything people can find out, Hong Tianfu said. Then tell me, are there any strange swords or sword fragments in this tower? Su Zimo asked. Sword fragments? You must mean the sword on the 9th floor, Hong Tianfu said with a smile. Explain, Su Zimo said. The sword tower has 9 floors. The most unique one is the 9th. I only know what I've heard from others, Hong Tianfu replied. They say there's only one broken sword on that floor. The sword is alive, full of spirit and very temperamental. Everyone who's entered that floor before has been attacked by the sword and killed. No one's ever managed to tame it. Sounds interesting. Let's go see, Su Zimo replied. You're not really planning to take that sword, are you? Hong Tianfu tried to persuade him. It's a vicious sword. It's too dangerous. Not worth it. Su Zimo didn't say anything and headed straight for the 9th floor. Hong Tianfu hesitated, then looked at the black sword in his hand, gritted his teeth, and followed. When they arrived at the 9th floor, they saw it was a volcanic scene. The volcano had awakened. Meteors of molten lava constantly fell from the sky, smashing the ground into a mess. The earth was covered in gray volcanic ash, and the heat was intense enough to burn the air itself. The space was vast. Besides the volcano in the center, the surroundings were empty. But Su Zimo and Hong Tianfu weren't the only ones there. Not far away was another group of people. Su Zimo saw them, and they saw him. There were 5 of them, 3 young men, 1 young woman, and an old man. These days, a lot of people aren't afraid to die, Hong Tianfu muttered. As long as the reward's big enough, there'll always be people ready to die, Su Zimo said with a smile. He ignored the group and continued walking with Hong Tianfu toward the volcano. The meteors in the sky were too dense, so neither of them flew. The closer they got, the hotter it became. Su Zimo had various pills on him. He took out 2 ice skin pills, one for himself and one for Hong Tianfu. Only then did their body temperatures cool down. This must be a star-tier pill. Su Zimo, you're pretty generous, Hong Tianfu laughed. Want me to just watch you roast to death instead? Su Zimo replied. When they reached the base of the volcano, the rocks were scalding hot, as if wrapped in flames. Su Zimo was fine, but Hong Tianfu's strength was too low. He couldn't walk on the rocks for long. So Su Zimo carried him and flew toward the summit. As more meteors rained down, Su Zimo drew Shadow Tyrant. Blade aura surrounded them, preventing any meteor from coming within 3 meters. When they reached the volcano's summit, they found the other group of 5 had already arrived. Their speed was impressive. They must have prepared in advance. Several fire-covered trees grew at the peak. These were fire trees, flame-loving trees that grew only near volcanoes, adding some beauty to the otherwise barren summit. The volcano below rumbled like a furious beast. Its core was filled with thick lava, bubbling and boiling. And at the very center of that lava pool, there was a broken sword. It was the blade of a sword. Su Zimo was now only missing the blade and hilt to complete the true god sword. Before he could act, one of the 5 young men walked toward him. How should I address you, friend? the man asked with a smile. You need something? Suzimo replied flatly. We'd like to ask that you not compete with us for that broken sword, the young man said directly. Sure. Suzimo nodded and agreed immediately. The young man was slightly stunned, looking at Suzimo with suspicion before finally thanking him and walking away. You're just giving it up like that? Hong Tianfu asked, surprised. Let them try first. If they can't get it, then we'll go, Suzimo replied. What if they succeed? That's simple. We kill them and take it. Chapter 466. Obtaining the fourth fragment. When Suzimo said that, Hong Tianfu was stunned for a moment but quickly recovered. Although Suzimo and he hadn't made a move yet, the 5 people ahead were still on guard. The 3 young men looked at Suzimo and Hong Tianfu warily, while the old man and the young girl went to the edge of the erupting volcano. The girl wore a light blue robe and looked around 15 or 16 years old. She seemed to have just started her cultivation journey. The old man had gray-white facial hair, and his black hair was tied neatly behind his head. He looked full of spirit and wore a long cyan green robe. Uncle Ming, I'm counting on you, the girl said softly, her voice still youthful. Miss, I'll give it a try, the old man named Ming said with a nod. This broken sword has already developed a violent nature. It's very hard to tame. After speaking, Uncle Ming took out a snowflake-shaped object from his storage ring. Or rather, it was an actual snowflake. Suzimo watched from the side with interest. 1,000 mountain snow. He hadn't expected the other party to even prepare something like this. 1,000 Mountain was a snow-covered mountain, known for being buried in snow all year round. It's said that long ago, 1,000 Mountain was no different from any other ordinary mountain. Later, a demon beast named Tomb Fish attempted to undergo tribulation on the mountain top. Unfortunately, the heavenly tribulation was too powerful and killed Tomb Fish on the spot. After Tomb Fish died, its body decayed and merged into the mountain. Due to its innate life force, the area became permanently snowy and extremely cold. Inside 1,000 Mountain, besides regular snow, there was a rare material called 1,000 Mountain Snow. It was formed by the fusion of Tomb Fish's vital energy and snowflakes. It represents the ultimate power of ice and snow. 1,000 Mountain Snow was very rare, a treasure you could only come across by luck. At this moment, Uncle Ming held the 1,000 Mountain Snow in his left hand while channeling his spirit force with his right. Finally, a giant spirit force hand formed and reached toward the broken sword inside the erupting volcano. The broken sword seemed aware and, as the hand approached from above, a sharp sword aura burst forth from the sword, slicing the giant hand in half. This act appeared to enrage the sword. Endless flames surged around the blade, and loud explosions echoed across the area. The entire volcano began to tremble as if it were waking up. Molten lava surged upward from the depths below, and with a loud sword cry, a sea of fire burst into the sky. The people nearby quickly retreated. Meteors and molten rocks rained down. The summit of the volcano cracked in countless places, and the scorching air, mixed with the stench of sulfur, swept across the area. Within that fiery sea, a broken sword surged upward. As the firestorm shot up, a metallic clang echoed. This first target was the old man. The broken sword, carrying endless flames like a fire god's descent, slashed toward Uncle Ming with molten lava and fierce sword energy. The old man's face turned grim. He shielded the girl behind him, then activated the 1,000 Mountain Snow. Pure white snowflakes danced in the air, and a cold aura spread outward, forming a transparent barrier centered on him. Inside the barrier, snowflakes gently fell. Molten lava collided with the snowy shield and was completely absorbed. Boiling magma and the freezing snow combined into steam. The old man's aura was immense, like a falling sky. His true fate appeared, a pure white longsword. He gripped the sword and stepped into the snowy sky to attack. The broken sword surged through the sea of fire, rising to meet him. A huge explosion followed. Spirit force swept out in all directions. The sea of fire shattered into countless fireballs raining down. Su Zimo looked up and saw the old man fall from the sky. The snowy shield shattered, and the old man crashed to the ground, his robes in tatters, his face full of desperation. "Uncle Ming!" the girl cried out. "Let's go!" The old man grabbed her and fled in a panic. The broken sword, carried by the fiery sea, poured down like a storm and covered the entire summit. The 3 young men who had accompanied them were all burned in the flames. Su Zimo calmly watched, unmoved by the raging fire around him. "The sword has gained sentience," he murmured. During the early days of the Desolate Era, the true God Sword was split into 5 sword fragments. Some fragments had sword spirits that died, while others developed new consciousness. Of the 3 fragments Su Zimo had previously obtained, only the first had consciousness, namely Blue Soul. The other 2 were inert. This 4th fragment, this sword blade, clearly had a violent consciousness. After the old man escaped, the broken sword turned its attention to Su Zimo. It also sensed the aura of the other fragments on him. It stared at him warily. "Submit to me," Su Zimo said calmly. As soon as he spoke, the broken sword was enraged. It surged forward with the sea of fire and overwhelming power. Su Zimo waved his right hand, and the 3 fragments he had already collected flew out. As they emerged, their sword-intent soared skyward. The 3 separate sword-intents formed a mighty aura that surrounded the blade. Together, the sword-intents suppressed the broken sword. Feeling something was wrong, the broken sword tried to flee. But Su Zimo struck again, sending out the immortal suppression chain, which locked the sword in place. Then all 4 fragments were drawn into Su Zimo's true fate, the God World. Once everything settled, the erupting volcano gradually calmed down. The broken sword continued to struggle inside the God World, but Su Zimo ignored it. Inside that world, there was no escape. When Su Zimo descended the volcano, Hong Tianfu was already waiting at the base. "Su Zimo, are you okay?" he asked anxiously. "I'm fine." Su Zimo shook his head. Hong Tianfu finally relaxed. "Did you get the broken sword?" Su Zimo nodded lightly. "Su Zimo, you really aren't ordinary." Hong Tianfu could only marvel. He didn't ask how Su Zimo managed to claim the sword, but he now suspected that Su Zimo's identity was far from simple. That broken sword had been sitting in the sword tower of Myriad Sword City for who knows how many years. Chapter 467, The Unerring Fortune Teller. During this time, countless prodigies had tried to obtain the broken sword, only to lose their lives here. This alone was enough to show how powerful the broken sword was. Brother Su, obtaining the broken sword might cause a huge stir in the entire Myriad Sword City. Hong Tianfu warned, "You should keep this matter as hidden as possible, in case it attracts those with ill intentions." "No need to hide it, and no need to flaunt it either," Su Zimo said calmly. "Just a normal mindset." "So what are you planning to do next?" Hong Tianfu continued to ask. "I'm heading off to Overlord Sword City, to search for descendants of the Jiang clan of the Sword Immortal from back then," Su Zimo replied without hiding anything. "Huh? Didn't the Jiang clan already get wiped out?" Hong Tianfu asked in surprise. "It's been so many years. Who knows if any descendants are still alive?" "No idea, just want to try looking," Su Zimo replied. "If you don't have any leads, I can recommend someone," Hong Tianfu smiled. "Maybe they'll help you in your search for the Jiang clan." "Who?" Su Zimo asked curiously. "Someone from Celestial Secrets Valley," Hong Tianfu replied. "Back when the Jiang clan hadn't disappeared yet, their head once went to this person to have their fortune told. Looks like Celestial Secrets Valley is quite active in this era," Su Zimo chuckled. He had previously met someone from Celestial Secrets Valley, named God Diviner. "Where is he? What's his name?" Su Zimo asked. "He's here in Myriad Sword City, and his name is Flawless Diviner," said Hong Tianfu. "But it's quite difficult to get him to tell a fortune. He rarely does it, unless you can meet his conditions." "What if you put a knife to his neck? Still won't do it?" Su Zimo asked with interest. "Who would dare threaten him?" Hong Tianfu shook his head. "If he wants someone's head, Just one word from him, and probably all of Myriad Sword City would hunt that person down. Take me to see him, Suzimo smiled. The two left the 9th floor, and hadn't gone far before a group of people blocked their path. Among them were two people Suzimo recognized, the young girl and the old man named Mingbo who had previously fled. How should I address this young master? Mingbo asked with a friendly smile. What do you want? Suzimo asked. You took the broken sword, right? Before Mingbo could answer, the girl beside him interrupted. No need to deny it. The space on the 9th floor was sealed. That proves the broken sword is gone. What does it matter to you whether I did or didn't? Suzimo replied calmly. Kid, is that how you speak to our young lady? A blue-robed youth beside her couldn't hold back and glared at Suzimo. If I got the broken sword, it proves I'm stronger than you. Do you really want to die that badly? Suzimo looked at the blue-robed youth and said calmly. You dare kill someone here? The young man's eyes showed panic, but he forced himself to stay calm and said, Do you know who our young lady is? She's Lord Hua's granddaughter. Before Suzimo could respond, Hong Tianfu exclaimed, Lord Hua? You mean the head of the Sword Tower branch? The blue-robed youth snorted and didn't answer, clearly confirming the identity. This is trouble, Hong Tianfu muttered under his breath, and began winking at Suzimo. Her identity has nothing to do with me. If you've got nothing else, stop blocking my way, Suzimo said impatiently. Name your price. Sell me that broken sword, the girl said. Go away, Suzimo replied calmly. And I don't want to repeat myself. You! The girl's face showed anger and she wanted to say more, but was stopped by the old man. If you ever change your mind, you're welcome to come find us, Mingbo said with a smile. Suzimo gave them a look, then left with Hong Tianfu. Oh! Watching them leave, the girl said unwillingly, Mingbo, why'd we just let him go like that? Your identity is already exposed. Yet he still didn't care, Mingbo said calmly. Look at things with a cool head. Myriad Sword City is too small. Of the 36 empires in the northern continent, not one is someone we can afford to offend. You mean they have powerful backgrounds? The girl caught on and asked. Not sure, but until we know more, better not to make enemies. We were in the wrong first anyway. Mingbo shook his head. Is that Lord Hua really that scary? You look terrified, Suzimo said. You don't understand. Lord Hua is the one in charge of the Sword Tower's Myriad Sword City branch. No one in Myriad Sword City dares mess with him, Hong Tianfu explained. Even the patriarch of our Hong clan wouldn't dare act up in front of him. Suzimo looked at Hong Tianfu deeply, feeling a bit of pity for his fate. The guy was like a frog at the bottom of a well. He had probably never gone far outside Myriad Sword City, and this was the extent of his worldview. But then again, isn't that true for most people in this world? Just frogs in a well. Oh! After having a meal at a restaurant, Hong Tianfu led Suzimo to where Flawless Diviner lived. Everyone in Myriad Swords City knew his residence, but ordinary people couldn't get close to him, because he lived in a very secluded alley, which had been remodeled into a spacious courtyard. At the alley's entrance, a swordsman stood guard. To see Flawless Diviner, one had to get past the swordsman. So Hong Tianfu stopped once they arrived at the alley. What caught Suzimo's eye were the strange patterns painted on the walls on both sides. There were characters he couldn't recognize and many creatures he had never seen, all drawn in black ink. At the alley entrance sat a man. He wore gray robes and sat cross-legged, a gray long sword resting on his knees. His eyes were closed as if nothing in the outside world concerned him. People in Myriad Sword City call him the Nameless Swordsman, Hong Tianfu whispered to Suzimo. They say he was once hunted by enemies, but Flawless Diviner saved him, even altered his fate. So in the end, he chose to follow Flawless Diviner. To meet Flawless Diviner, you have to defeat him first. Suzimo smiled and walked slowly toward the alley. The moment he stepped inside, sword intent filled the air and pressed down on him. The gray-robed swordsman instantly opened his eyes. The sword on his knees flew from its sheath, and dazzling sword light slashed through the quiet space. Chapter 468. I'm going to kill your cat. Stop right there, said the nameless swordsman, his eyes bursting with endless sword intent as he looked at Su Zimo. I'm looking for Flawless Diviner, Su Zimo replied. Then defeat me first. The nameless swordsman slowly stood up and drew his sword, speaking calmly. You're not strong enough. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. He drew his saber, Shadow Tyrant, and slashed down. Although this slash looked ordinary, the nameless swordsman's expression turned serious. No matter what choice he made, he felt he couldn't dodge this slash. His vision was filled only with the blade, and the hand gripping his sword trembled slightly. This is boring, Su Zimo chuckled lightly. He sheathed his saber, put his hands behind his head, and walked deeper into the alley. When the blade was withdrawn, the pressure around the nameless swordsman finally disappeared. Unknowingly, his forehead was drenched in sweat. He took a deep breath, but his hand still dared not draw his sword. He could only watch Su Zimo walk deeper into the alley. The courtyards on both sides of the alley were interconnected. The entrance was a small, delicately crafted wooden door. 2 green parrot trees were planted in front of the door. These trees had a strange attraction for yellow parakeets, who loved nesting in them. As Su Zimo stepped through the door, the space opened up before him. The courtyard was vast, filled with various objects. In the center stood a large tree. Su Zimo didn't recognize its species, but it was over 50 meters tall. Clearly, it had grown for a long, long time. Under the tree, there was an altar, a circular, completely black altar about 5 meters tall. On top of the altar was a platform, which held 5 items. A ball of fire, a sapling, a piece of golden ore, a drop of water, and a handful of yellow soil. Each item was enclosed in a transparent dome. Under the tree lay a black kitten. When Su Zimo entered through the wooden door, the once sleeping kitten instantly opened its eyes. Its eyes were blood red. It pounced at Su Zimo, its body growing dozens of times larger in midair. In an instant, the cute kitten had become a monster. Feeling the foul wind rushing toward him, Su Zimo frowned and slapped it away. A loud yowl echoed. The giant form of the kitten was swatted away, crashing to the ground and smashing several large holes into the earth before coming to a stop. It bared its teeth angrily at Su Zimo but didn't dare make the first move. If no one comes out, I'll destroy this altar, Su Zimo said with a light smile. Just as he finished speaking, a disheveled man walked out from the inner room. He looked like a wild man from deep in the mountains. His clothes hadn't been washed in who knows how long, and even from a distance, Su Zimo could smell a foul stench. His hair was long and covered most of his head. Who are you? The man asked, his voice hoarse as if something was pressing on his throat. I'm looking for Flawless Diviner. Su Zimo frowned slightly. It's me, the man replied. If you're here for a fortune reading, then please leave. Don't disturb me. If you don't answer my questions, I'll destroy this altar, Su Zimo said with a smile. He could tell this altar was very important to Flawless Diviner. Are you threatening me? Flawless Diviner turned his head and spoke in a low voice. Kid, do you know how many years it's been since someone dared to threaten me? I'm not only going to destroy your altar, Su Zimo continued. I'm going to kill your cat, and then I'll kill you. Think about it. Flawless Diviner stared deeply at Su Zimo, then finally took out a cylindrical item from his storage ring. When he opened the cylinder, a firework shot into the sky. Brilliant, colorful fireworks exploded overhead, visible to the entire Myriad Sword City. Young people must always pay for their arrogance, Flawless Diviner said calmly. Not long after, several figures flew through the sky toward the courtyard. There were 5 of them, 3 middle-aged men and 2 elders. One elder wore a red robe, bald on top, with a ruddy face. The other wore a blue long robe, his aura ethereal and refined like an immortal. When these 5 arrived, Hong Tianfu saw the scene from the alley entrance. What did Brother Su do inside? Why are all the big figures of Myriad Swords City gathering here? Hong Tianfu exclaimed. That Sword Tower's chief Lord Hua, Shui Clan's patriarch, Shui Qiqing, Feather Sect leader Xiang Mu, Black Cloud Gang leader Sha Hu, and my own clan's patriarch. Hong Tianfu wanted to go in, but seeing the nameless swordsman guarding the alley, he could only wait anxiously outside. Once the five arrived at the courtyard, Shui Qiqing was the first to laugh and said, "Flawless, you finally came begging to us, huh?" Flawless Diviner frowned slightly and pointed to Su Zimo. "Whoever can capture him, I'll give them one free fortune reading, within my ability." "Easy enough," Shui Qiqing laughed loudly, releasing a powerful aura of the Empyrean Meridian realm and stepping towards Su Zimo. He laughed. "Kid, are you going to surrender or should I break your limbs?" "Old Shui, don't take what's mine. This brat is mine." Sha Hu snorted coldly. His muscles bulged, and he wore a black tank top with a tiger head symbol on his chest. Sha Hu, whoever catches him first gets him. Flawless didn't set rules, did he? While the two bickered, the other three simply watched Su Zimo calmly. But from their stance, they were ready to act at any time. "Gentlemen, there's no need to be so hasty," Su Zimo interrupted, smiling. "There's plenty of time, and I'm not going anywhere." "Kid's got guts." Shui Qiqing chuckled and reached out to grab Su Zimo. Su Zimo waved his right hand, and the space in front of him shattered. A massive figure emerged from the void. As the enormous being appeared, the pressure of an arcane immortal powerhouse enveloped all of Myriad Swords City. Centered on the courtyard, everyone present was pinned in place. Chaos' ferocious eyes stared down at them all. In that moment, none of them dared to even breathe heavily. Chapter 469, Jiang Clan's Disappearance. All the blood in their bodies seemed to freeze. This was the natural reaction of encountering something terrifying. You. Shui Qiqing looked at Su Zimo, unable to speak for a moment. "Respected one, I was just here to watch. I meant no harm," Xiang Mu, the sect master of the Feather Sect, quickly explained. At this moment, he felt lucky he hadn't made a move earlier. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't even know how he died. "You said you'd break my limbs." Su Zimo looked at Shui Qiqing and Sha Hu and said calmly, "You two don't need to rush. We'll take our time." "Respected one, we weren't." Before Shui Qiqing could finish, Chaos lifted its finger and stomped down. With a miserable scream, both of their arms had been crushed and twisted. Chaos didn't stop there. Several more stomps flattened all four of their limbs. "Boss, stomping them like this is boring. I want to crush their heads." Chaos grinned beside him. "Doesn't matter?" Su Zimo turned to Flawless Diviner and said, "Old man, if you've got anything else, feel free to try it. Forget Myriad Swords City, even if you call everyone in Celestial Secrets Valley. I'll say the same thing. Either answer my question, or I'll kill you." Flawless Diviner's expression was ugly, shifting between dark and pale, and he stayed silent for a moment. Eventually, he asked, "What do you want to know? Do you remember the Jiang clan of Overlord Sword City?" Su Zimo asked. "Why are you asking about that?" Flawless Diviner frowned slightly. "I heard the Jiang clan came to you before they disappeared." "Speak," Su Zimo said. "This." Flawless Diviner looked hesitantly at the others, clearly not wanting to say too much. "You all can leave now," Su Zimo waved his hand. "And I don't want today's events to spread. Otherwise, I'll consider wiping out your clans. Rest assured, respected one. We know nothing." The remaining three quickly shook their heads. Faced with the arcane immortal chaos, they didn't even dare to look back as they fled. As for Shui Qiqing and Sha Hu, Chaos stomped down again. Their heads burst like watermelons, flesh and blood flying everywhere, and Chaos tossed them aside. "Now speak," Su Zimo said. "I promised Zhang Li I wouldn't tell anyone. I hope you'll keep this secret too," Flawless Diviner said. "Back then, Zhang Li, the patriarch of the Jiang clan, asked me to read the future fate of their clan. Your Celestial Secrets Valley doesn't have that kind of power," Su Zimo said. unless those old geezers risked their lives to step in. I don't have that kind of power, Flawless Diviner admitted. But do you know why the Jiang clan declined? Why? Su Zimo asked. Have you heard of the Blood Rune space? Flawless Diviner replied. Su Zimo paused slightly. He certainly knew about the Blood Rune space. It was related to the fragments of the true God sword he was gathering. In the legendary era, the war god ended the reign of the gods. After that, monsters ruled the world. Later, a cultivator walked out from the Valley of Flowers, wielding the true God sword, and established the Celestial Court. He sealed all those monsters into the Blood Rune space, thus beginning the Desolate Era. Su Zimo had already seen this information in the River of Fate when he first obtained the true God sword. I know. Su Zimo nodded and replied. Then you should know that even though the Blood Rune space is sealed, the monsters of the legendary era have never stopped trying, Flawless Diviner said. They've been attacking the Seal generation after generation, hoping to return to the primordial heartlands and start their era of rule again. What does this have to do with the Jiang clan? Su Zimo asked. Because the core of the Blood Rune sealing array is located at the Jiang clan's founding site, Flawless Diviner replied. Zhang Li told me this himself. Back then, the sword immortal Zhang Yun accepted the inheritance of the divine ancestor. That's how he achieved such great success. Later, he also promised the divine ancestor to build the clan on top of the seal's core, becoming its guardian for generations. The Jiang clan's decline is related to the Blood Rune space. Su Zimo immediately saw the key point. The seal has become unstable after all these generations of attacks from the monsters. Flawless Diviner nodded. Some monsters have already begun to escape from the Blood Rune space. The Jiang clan exhausted themselves maintaining the seal. Eventually, internal and external troubles wore them down, leading to their decline. Where is the Jiang clan now? Su Zimo asked. Back then, Zhang Li came to me, asking for help from Celestial Secrets Valley to solve the internal problems of his clan. But our Celestial Secrets Valley didn't want to get involved. I pitied him, so I gave him some advice, Flawless Diviner said. I told the Jiang clan to leave Overlord Sword City and hide from the world. Maybe when the seal breaks one day, they'll have a chance to survive. After all, they've guarded the seal for so long, and those monsters hold a deep grudge against them. At this, Flawless Diviner sighed. The Jiang clan rose because of the Sword Immortal, and the Sword Immortal only became what he was with help from the divine ancestor. Truly, they succeeded because of the Sword Immortal and failed because of him too. So now, no one knows where the Jiang clan went, Su Zimo said calmly, looking at Flawless Diviner. Feeling Su Zimo's gaze, Flawless Diviner grew nervous. He quickly said, Even though I said that, Zhang Li isn't someone who would run away. Although the Jiang clan has been gone for many years, I believe they're still hiding somewhere near Overlord Sword City. Let's hope so, Su Zimo said quietly. After learning the truth, Su Zimo left with chaos. He didn't trouble Flawless Diviner any further. When he walked out of the alley, the waiting Hong Tianfu quickly ran over. Brother Su, are you okay? He asked anxiously. What could happen to me? Su Zimo replied. I saw so many people go in earlier. I thought you'd gotten into trouble with Flawless Diviner, Hong Tianfu said. Just some small-time characters, not worth mentioning. Su Zimo smiled and said, I'm leaving Myriad Sword City. Hong Tianfu was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, Safe travels. After sharing a meal with Hong Tianfu, Su Zimo finally left Myriad Sword City. He headed north toward Overlord Sword City. As the center of the Sword Domain, Overlord Sword City was the most prosperous and massive city in the region. Since the Jiang clan's disappearance, the three major powers of the Sword Domain had each established a presence in Overlord Sword City. It was also a sacred land in the hearts of all sword cultivators. Su Zimo traveled for about 7 days. On the afternoon of the 7th day, covered in dust from the road, he finally arrived at the gates of this famous city. Chapter 470 Rumors begin. Overlord Sword City had existed for a very long time. Its ancient city walls stood silently on the land, and the iron-blue city gate seemed to wordlessly tell the story of a lifetime. The dusk sunlight, accompanied by the crimson glow of the evening clouds, spread over the city, casting it in a hazy light. As the sun set in the west, the hearts of the wandering were heavy. Su Zimo walked into Overlord Sword City. The city's prosperity and size were comparable to the primordial ancient city he had visited before. People crowded the streets, and almost everyone carried a sword. The place where the Jiang clan used to live had now become a market district. It was the largest market in Overlord Sword City. Local residents usually bought and sold goods here, and some even traded items directly. After asking around about the market's location, Su Zimo made his way there. Walking along the main street for a few hundred meters, a tall gate appeared ahead. The gate stood over 3 meters tall and was bright red. Su Zimo passed through it and entered the market, discovering it was even more bustling than he had imagined. Shops of all kinds lined both sides. Most sold goods. Rarely did you see restaurants or inns. Along the sides of the wide road, many people had laid out small stalls on the ground. "Sir, come take a look. Don't miss it." A personal sword of a direct disciple from Heavenly Sword Gate, now selling cheap. As Su Zimo walked along, hawkers on both sides of the road shouted out their sales pitches. The streets were lively with people shopping and chatting, full of vitality. He wandered through the market until dusk approached, then left and found a restaurant. Despite walking around, he found nothing. Felt like searching for a needle in a haystack. After eating, Su Zimo left the restaurant around midnight. Old Su was a beggar and had been begging in Overlord Sword City for nearly 10 years. He survived by picking up others' leftovers. He was already quite old, and a few years back he had taken in a young beggar. He treated the boy like his own son. Perhaps as he got older, he simply wanted companionship in his later years. The summer heat was intense, and recently the boy had fallen seriously ill. He was on the verge of death. Old Su had no money to treat the boy, so he could only watch helplessly as he grew weaker by the day. At dusk, the summer heat had eased a little, and a breeze began to blow. He leaned against the innermost wall of an alley in the slums of Overlord Sword City, carefully feeding water from a broken bowl into the boy's mouth. He hoped that fate would be kind and let the child survive. Just then, footsteps echoed from nearby. The old beggar quickly looked toward the alley entrance. This alley was where beggars rested. Filthy and foul-smelling, most people avoided it completely. He saw a young man in a purple robe slowly approaching. The youth carried a curved blade on his back. His eyes were both dominating and deep, and his aura was indescribable. Perhaps none of the nobles old Su had seen in his life were as memorable as this young man. "Do you need something?" the old beggar asked cautiously. "Help me spread a message in the city, and this spirit crystal is yours," the purple-robed youth said calmly. As he spoke, a transparent spirit crystal was tossed over. Old Su stared blankly at the crystal in his hand, then quickly reacted. He knelt and begged, "Sir, I'll spread whatever message you want. I don't want the spirit crystal. I just beg you to save him." He pointed at the dying young beggar beside him, pleading with the youth. Su Zimo glanced at the boy. He summoned the vitality of the tree of life in his hand, and with a wave, the green energy flowed into the boy's body. "Old Su, am I dying?" The boy slowly opened his eyes and asked weakly. "Don't say such unlucky things, kid. You're not dying. We met a great benefactor, a big one." The old beggar laughed joyfully, clearly in good spirits. That night, Su Zimo visited every area in Overlord Sword City where beggars gathered. By the time the sky began to brighten, he returned to the restaurant and shut himself inside. The sleeping Overlord Sword City resembled a silent beast, roaring in stillness. As the sun rose, purple light filled the east, and the bright sun shone high. The streets were already crowded, and people from all walks of life resumed their usual routines. It seemed nothing had changed, but on that day, something new was quietly being said in Overlord Sword City. "Old Zhang, Do you remember the Jiang clan from back in the day? Of course. When the Jiang clan ruled the Sword Domain, it was peaceful and prosperous. Now that they're gone, the three great powers keep fighting. I really miss those days. Well, did you hear? A descendant of the Jiang clan has supposedly shown up in Overlord Sword City. They say he inherited the Sword Immortal's legacy. No way, really? I'm not sure myself, but the whole city is talking about it. You're the only one who doesn't know. They say he's staying at the Fortune Arrival Inn and returned to honor his ancestors. Though many were skeptical, the rumor spread quickly throughout the entire city. It escalated further, even reaching other cities in the Sword Domain. The impression the Jiang clan left was too strong. It was no exaggeration to say that the Sword Domain only existed because of the Jiang clan, and their sudden disappearance had long been a mystery in people's hearts. The Sword God Realm was located in the north of Overlord Sword City, with its main base built on the nearby Sword God Mountain. The branch in Overlord Sword City was just one division. At that moment, in the main hall of the Sword God Realm, an old man in a gray-white robe sat in a chair, frowning in deep thought. Just then, a disciple walked in and respectfully said, "Elder Jian, the sound transmission wall has responded." "I see." The elder called Elder Jian quickly stood and walked toward the wall. He was the head of the Sword God Realms branch in Overlord Sword City. The sound transmission wall was their link to the main sect. When the rumor about the Jiang clan descendants first appeared, he immediately reported it to the main sect. Now, as he stood before the wall, the aura of spirit force shifted, and only 3 words appeared. "Kill without mercy." He slowly raised his head, looked out the window at the sky, then gathered his spirit force and walked out of the room. Chapter 471, Assassination by the Three Powers. The same situation wasn't limited to the Sword God Realm. The other 2 major factions, Heavenly Sword Gate and the Swordless Mountain, had received similar orders. Throughout the day, many people wanted to visit the Fortune Arrival Inn, but Su Zimo remained behind closed doors. There wasn't much anyone could do. Forcing their way in was out of the question. Another day passed, and night fell. A bright full moon hung in the sky, and the stars shone brilliantly tonight. Unknown insects chirped in dark corners. 3 figures approached the rooftop of the Fortune Arrival Inn from different directions. Their movements were swift and light, each figure cloaked in a large black robe. They stepped through the air from afar, covering dozens of meters with each step. When the 3 met on the rooftop, they were visibly cautious of each other. "Who are you?" asked Elder Jian first. "Old Man Jian, I'd recognize your voice even if you turned to ash," laughed the black-robed figure on the left. "So, you're from Heavenly Sword Gate. Since when did your sect start sneaking around like this?" "Cut it with the sarcasm, Old Man Jian. Your Sword God Realm is no better." The Heavenly Sword Gate elder snapped back. Listening to the bickering, the black-robed figure on the right side. "You two stop arguing. Have you forgotten our mission? Looks like even the Swordless Mountain can't sit still now," muttered Elder Jian. The Swordless Mountain had always prided itself on being a noble sect, rarely getting involved in the conflicts between Heavenly Sword Gate and the Sword God Realm. They usually kept a detached attitude, but the appearance of a Jiang clan descendant had clearly changed things. "Gentlemen, the situation isn't clear yet. We don't know if he's really a Jiang," said the Heavenly Sword Gate elder, shaking his head. "But whether he is or isn't, our orders are the same. Better to kill the wrong person than let the real one go." In the 3rd-floor room of Fortune Arrival Inn, Su Zimo leaned against the windowsill, enjoying the moonlight while waiting for his prey. The candlelight in the room had been extinguished, leaving the space in complete darkness. A light breeze drifted in from the window, followed by the faint sound of the door opening. As the door creaked open, 3 figures quietly stepped inside. Their eyes immediately fell on Su Zimo sitting at the window. Moonlight bathed him like a layer of silver frost. He leaned comfortably against the windowsill, looking at the 3 of them with a faint smile. "You knew we were coming?" The elder from the Swordless Mountain narrowed his eyes, watching Su Zimo warily. "I was hoping to catch a big fish," But this is what I get? 3 little shrimps. Su Zimo sighed and shook his head. Then, with a wave of his hand, a powerful force pressed down on them. "Run!" the swordless mountain elder shouted. He transformed into a sharp sword and shot into the distance. None of the 3 even thought about fighting. They felt like they'd fallen into a giant trap. All 3 were powerful cultivators in the Imperial Meridian realm. Yet when Su Zimo's hand came down, the surrounding space was sealed by an invisible force. It was like they were stuck in a swamp, unable to move. The immortal suppression chain flashed from Su Zimo's hand and completely restrained them, dropping them to the floor of the room. Seeing Su Zimo's casual display of such overwhelming power, all 3 of them swallowed hard. "Respected one, we mean no harm," Elder Jin quickly said. "We only heard rumors of a Jiang descendant and came to take a look." "But I do mean harm," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "Now answer my questions. If you can tell me something useful, you live. If not, you won't see tomorrow's sunrise. Ask what you like. We'll tell you everything we know," Elder Jin replied. "Why do you want to kill the Jiang clan descendant?" Su Zimo asked. The 3 were silent for a moment. The swordless mountain elder finally said, "We don't know. It was an order from the higher-ups." "Does the Jiang clan's disappearance have anything to do with your 3 sects?" Su Zimo asked. "Tell me everything you know about the Jiang clan from these past years." "We really don't know anything," said Elder Jin. "The Jiang clan vanished suddenly. We didn't do anything. We've been trying to track them for years, with no results. It's like they disappeared from the face of the earth." "Your words are useless to me," Su Zimo said impatiently as he drew Shadow Tyrant from his back. In the darkness, a streak of blood flew through the air. The blood was bright red and strange. Early the next morning, a servant silently dragged out 3 corpses. The room was cleaned up. Not far from Overlord Sword City stood Sword God Mountain. One of the 3 major sects, the Sword God realm, was built there. The morning glow lit up the sect's buildings. Within the Sword God realm, disciples flew on swords. Elders breathed and channeled energy. A single breath could send a sword hundreds of miles, slicing open the void. Sword-shaped peaks floated in midair. The sea of swords sparkled under the morning light. On the plaza, hundreds of disciples practiced sword techniques with intense momentum. At the top seat sat the sect master, Jiani Hai, with 10 elders beneath him. His hand tapped rhythmically on the armrest beside him. His eyes opened slightly and he said, "Elder Jin's soul lamp has gone out?" "Yes, he's likely dead." The Grand Elder of the sect stepped forward. "This appearance of the Jiang descendant feels strange. I have a bad feeling. I'll handle this matter. You may all leave." Jiani Hai waved them off. After everyone left, Jiani Hai entered the hall's inner chamber. Making sure no one was around, he crushed a spatial jade talisman in his hand. As the talisman shattered, a spatial vortex opened and sucked him in. Inside the space was a sea of blood. The smell of blood was so thick it seemed almost solid. At the center of the sea of blood was a bridge made entirely of skulls. It looked like thousands of skulls had gathered to form it. The area was deathly silent. After entering, Jiani Hai stepped onto the skull bridge and walked toward its end. There, at the far end, sat a black-robed creature, quietly fishing beside the blood sea. No one knew what it was trying to catch. "Lord Ming." Jiani Hai knelt respectfully before the figure in black robes. "The people I sent are dead. You have 3 days. I want all the information." The black-robed creature spoke. Its voice echoed heavily, deep and magnetic, carried an overwhelming pressure. "I understand," Jiani Hai said, his forehead covered in sweat. "I'll go myself." Get lost. Chapter 472. The Real Jiang Clan Descendant. Hearing the black-robed creature's words, Jiani Hai didn't get angry. Instead, he bowed respectfully, then slowly left the blood-colored space. After he left, huge waves rose from the blood sea in front of the black-robed creature. A thunderous rumble came from beneath the sea. The vast blood sea condensed into the shape of a monster, floating above the sea in midair. "The Jiang clan has appeared?" the monster asked in a deep voice. "Still gathering information," the black-robed creature replied calmly. "They guarded the seal for so many years. Now that it's about to break, no matter where they hide, I'll tear their entire clan to pieces. When the seal finally breaks, that day will mark the return of the Blood Rune race." The monster in the blood sea let out a deafening roar toward the sky. "If it weren't for the divine ancestor back then, we would have ruled this continent for generations." "Just wait," the black-robed creature said to himself, as if speaking into the void. "No grand emperors have risen in this generation. Heaven's will has yet to take shape. Everything will return to the final days of the legendary era. The wheels of history are turning again. No one can stop us. The Blood Rune race's resurgence will destroy everything in its path." In the morning in Overlord Sword City, Su Zimo was disturbed from cultivation by a knock at the door. "Who is it?" He opened his eyes and exhaled slowly. "Guest, I've brought your breakfast," someone replied from outside. "Come in," Su Zimo said calmly. The door opened, and a young man in a plain green cloth robe walked in. He carried a tray filled with food, placed it on the table and smiled. "Please enjoy your meal." Su Zimo looked at the young man with interest, noticing that the youth was also sizing him up. He smiled and said, "Do I really look that handsome?" "No, it's just that everyone's saying you're a descendant of the Jiang clan. I was curious," the server replied with a smile. "You're probably fake, right? And aren't you a fake server too?" Su Zimo replied, "I've never seen a cultivator in the Paragon Meridian realm working as a restaurant waiter." The young man didn't panic when Su Zimo saw through his cultivation. Instead, he smiled and said, "Don't get the wrong idea. I'm just a rogue cultivator passing through." "Let me guess your identity," Su Zimo said, tilting his head slightly. "Either you're here to kill me on behalf of the three sects, or you're the real descendant of the Jiang clan, right?" "I don't know what you're talking about," the young man replied, his face changing slightly before shaking his head. "Maybe you don't," Su Zimo said with a casual smile. Then he took out the inheritance given to him by the sword immortal Jiang Yun. The moment the sword seal appeared, boundless sword intent radiated from it. "You probably don't recognize this sword seal either." "What a shame," Su Zimo said. When the sword seal appeared, the young man's expression changed drastically. His pupils shrank, and he stared at the seal with a heavy look, then asked Su Zimo, "Who are you really? Shouldn't you be telling me who you are first?" Su Zimo replied. The young man hesitated for a long time before finally saying, "You guessed right. I am a descendant of the Jiang clan. This sword seal was given to me by your ancestor," Su Zimo said. "I entered his inheritance realm and promised to pass this legacy to his descendants." "Ancestor," the young man murmured softly. "If you say you're from the Jiang clan, then at least show proof. Otherwise, you can forget about this inheritance," Su Zimo said. The young man fell silent for a while, then said, "Give me some time. I'll bring you proof." "All right. Just don't keep me waiting too long," Su Zimo replied. "I hope you're not lying to me," the young man said, giving Su Zimo a deep look before turning to leave the room. After the young man left, Su Zimo finally began eating breakfast. He had spread rumors throughout Overlord Sword City that he was a Jiang descendant and the inheritor of the Sword Immortal's legacy. But his true goal wasn't the three sects. It was to draw out the real Jiang clan descendants. Because no matter what, they would come to see him eventually. This was the legacy of Jiang Yun, the Sword Immortal. They wouldn't take it lightly. The young man was only in the Paragon Meridian realm and likely not one of the Jiang clan's core members. So his departure now was probably to go discuss things with his people. Su Zimo wasn't in a rush. The legacy was in his hands, he just needed to find the right heir. He didn't care about the rest. The Blood Rune space had nothing to do with him. He wasn't a hero, nor did he have that kind of lofty mindset. Lately, Overlord Sword City felt strange. The activity of the three sects had dropped sharply. They weren't nearly as active as before. Even the usual conflicts between them seemed to have stopped. The change was subtle, but the citizens could still feel it. As summer neared its end, the sun shone with its last bit of strength. Once green leaves were starting to yellow, autumn had slowly begun to unveil its golden curtain. That morning, a breeze from Sword God Mountain swept across the land, carrying dust gently to the city walls of Overlord Sword City. A man in a golden robe slowly walked down from the mountain. He carried a long sword on his back, and with each step, he seemed to cross space itself as he moved toward the city. At the same time, far to the north of Overlord Sword City, an old man stepped through the breeze, heading toward the city with the morning sun behind him. He carried 7 long swords on his back, and the robe he wore had 2 large words written on it. One Heaven. To the west of Overlord Sword City, a middle-aged man in blue robes also walked forward step by step. His figure was ethereal, as though it existed between reality and illusion. One moment he was far away. The next he appeared several miles closer. He carried a sword sheath on his back, but there was no sword inside. It looked strange. Yet the man himself was like a drawn blade. With each step he took, powerful sword energy surrounded him. Ordinary people couldn't sense it. Only those deeply attuned to sword intent would notice that the energy around this man grew stronger with each passing moment. He was building momentum, and it was hard to imagine what kind of destruction that sword intent would bring once unleashed. By noon that day, the 3 men, each from a different direction, arrived at the city gate of Overlord Sword City. They exchanged glances and smiled faintly. "You're here too," Jenny Hai said with a smile. "Looks like the master is taking this matter seriously, sending all of us to investigate together." Chapter 473 Swordcasting Mirror. The old man carrying 7 long swords smiled as he spoke. He was Heavenedge, the current head of Heavenly Sword Gate. "The Jiang clan has finally shown up," said the man carrying the sword sheath. His tone was mixed with emotion, followed by a subtle sigh. He was the head of the Swordless Mountain. He had no name, people simply called him Swordless. These 3 were the leaders of the 3 strongest factions in the Sword Domain: Sword God Realm, Heavenly Sword Gate, and the Swordless Mountain. If outsiders witnessed this moment, they would be shocked. The Swordless Mountain, which always prided itself on being righteous and above conflict, Heavenly Sword Gate and Sword God Realm, who saw each other as bitter enemies, yet here their 3 leaders were, chatting and laughing like old friends who hadn't met in years. Not just the rest of the Sword Domain, even the disciples and elders within their own sects would never believe it. They'd be utterly shocked. "Should we directly capture the Jiang descendant?" Heavenedge asked. "No, what's the point of just catching one?" Jenny Hai shook his head. "Better to lie in wait. This time we need to wipe out the entire Jiang clan. That's the only way we'll be able to answer to Lord Ming. I don't believe that this is the last Jiang descendant." "You make the call," said Swordless, uninterested, speaking calmly. The 3 continued their conversation as they disguised themselves and entered Overlord Sword City. Su Zimo waited at the Fortune Arrival Inn for 3 days. During those 3 days, the atmosphere in Overlord Sword City grew even stranger. The whole city was too quiet. The usual skirmishes and conflicts seemed to have completely stopped. Felt like the calm before a storm. Not until the evening of the 3rd day did the young man who claimed to be a Jiang descendant return. This time he brought along an old man. The old man wore a gray long robe. He appeared elderly and frail, with all his hair white and his face full of wrinkles. Even his eyes were murky. He looked like an ordinary old man in his 60s. "This is Jiang Li, the patriarch of our Jiang clan," the young man introduced. "How do you prove that?" Su Zimo asked, looking at the old man. "If you come with us to a place, you'll believe it," the old man said with a warm, gentle smile. "Fine." Su Zimo nodded. Following the evening breeze, Su Zimo left Overlord Sword City with Jiang Li and the young man. After they departed, from the 2nd floor of an inn across from the Fortune Arrival Inn, Jenny Hai and the other 2 were seated by the window. "Looks like the fish has taken the bait," Heavenedge said with a smile. They traveled south from Overlord Sword City. After walking for about an hour, a mountain appeared in the distance. The mountain wasn't very tall, maybe a few dozen meters high. It was covered in greenery, lush and scenic. The mountain path was flat, not rugged. At the foot of the mountain stood two robed disciples. Zhongli led Su Zimo up the mountain. After walking for about 10 minutes, a manor appeared ahead. The manor's main gate was unique. One door was black, the other white. Two stone lion statues flanked the gate, one black, one white. Above the gate hung a signboard with 4 words written on it: Swordcasting Manor. Su Zimo looked at the manor with interest. He had heard of it, a faction established only in recent years. It was said to be founded by a few people who inherited the teachings of master swordsmiths. They had dedicated themselves to sword crafting, and because the swords they made were high quality, they became popular across the sword domain. The faction gradually grew. It wasn't very strong since it was new. At this point, dawn was breaking. Su Zimo followed Zhongli into the manor, entering a wide-open area. As they passed a pavilion, Su Zimo heard the clanging sounds of blacksmithing. He looked over curiously and saw several shirtless or sleeveless men forging weapons inside. The manor's architecture was simple. After walking a short distance with Zhongli, a man in green robes walked toward them. "Let me introduce. This is Qing Baihe, the head of Swordcasting Manor," Zhongli said. "He's also my disciple." "Master," Qing Baihe greeted with a smile, then looked at Su Zimo. "This must be the young man who's been making waves lately, the so-called Zhang clan descendant." "Su Zimo," he introduced himself. "I'll take him. Keep an eye on things outside," Zhongli instructed Qing Baihe. "Don't worry, master." Qing Baihe nodded. "Follow me." Zhongli led Su Zimo toward the back of the manor, passing through several corridors and secluded courtyards. Eventually, they stopped in front of an old well. Without a word, Zhongli jumped into the well. Su Zimo followed closely behind. At the bottom of the well was a shallow tunnel, lit by glowing pearls embedded in the walls. The yellowish soil cast a dim light across the tunnel. On one side of the tunnel there was a spatial array. They stepped into it, and shortly after, Su Zimo felt a wave of weightlessness. In the blink of an eye, his vision lit up. What appeared before him left him slightly stunned. A small city lay ahead. Judging by its location, it seemed they were underground. They had built an entire underground city. The only drawback was the lack of sunlight. Despite using many light sources, the lighting remained dim. The city wasn't very large and looked like it had been around for a while. "Let's go in," Zhongli said. "We've lived here since we left Overlord Sword City 300 years ago." As they walked into the city, Su Zimo asked curiously, "Because of the Blood Rune space, you had to leave Overlord Sword City. But why not go further? Why stay nearby and rebuild? The Blood Rune race breaking the seal is inevitable, unless a Grand Emperor appears." Zhongli sighed. "I once thought of leaving, but our ancestor promised the divine ancestor we'd be the seal's guardians. We, the Zhang clan, must keep our word. But what good does staying here do?" Su Zimo shook his head. "We've been collecting evidence," Zhongli replied. "Evidence of the 3 sects colluding with the Blood Rune race." "What do you mean?" Su Zimo frowned slightly. "Don't be fooled by the conflict between the 3 sections. Their higher-ups are actually all on the same side," Zhongli said coldly. Chapter 474 News of the Void Spirit Monkey. Back then, the seal was unstable, and some of the Blood Rune race's monsters broke through it. Although we repaired the seal in time, a few still slipped through the cracks. Zhongli snorted coldly and said, "The reason those 3 sects were able to rise is because those escapees were secretly helping them. Don't be fooled by the apparent conflicts on the surface. They're just for show. Their disciples don't know the truth. But the higher-ups all know each other." "So you're saying the 3 sects are puppets of the Blood Rune race?" Su Zimo said. "I had suspected that before." "Exactly. The strongest among the 3 sects is only at the God Meridian realm, while our Zhang clan has an ancestor who reached the arcane immortal realm. How could we fear them? Zhang Li sighed as he spoke. Back when the seal went into chaos, our ancestor had to personally descend to suppress it. At that time, the leaders of the three sects gathered together and tried to attack our Zhang clan. Then how did you all escape? Su Zimo asked. Our Zhang clan had been prepared for a long time. We built a city beneath this sword-casting mountain. We used a spatial formation to escape and made them all miss their target. As the two spoke, they had already entered the city. There were still quite a few people in the Zhang clan. Several hundred lived in this underground city. There were both direct descendants and collateral members. According to Zhang Li, the people here rarely go outside. Some might not even go out once in a decade. To the Zhang clan, Su Zimo's arrival as an outsider made everyone very curious. After all, it was the first time in many years that an outsider had come here. Patriarch, who is this? Asked an elder of the Zhang clan. My friend, Zhang Li said simply. Although the news about the Zhang clan's descendants had been widely spread recently, for those living in this underground city, the information flow wasn't that fast. Zhang Yun left a legacy for you all back then. Why did no one go looking for it? Su Zimo asked in confusion. Given the Zhang clan's current situation, their ancestors' legacy might be their only chance to rise again. Yet no one ever went to seek it. That's my fault too. Zhang Li shook his head and sighed. Back then, the ancestor left a map for us, saying that only someone with extraordinary talent could obtain his legacy after going through trials. Over the years, many from our Zhang clan have tried, but none passed the tests he left behind. I've failed to lead this family properly. No wonder. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. That guy probably didn't want to see his legacy tarnished. He wanted a true successor. What a pity. Young Master Su, you said before that you obtained the ancestor's legacy. Could you tell me the story behind it? Zhang Li asked, probing. Not much to tell. I accidentally entered the place where his legacy was hidden and met his avatar, Su Zimo replied. Later, we made a deal. I agreed to bring the legacy back. Thank you, young Master Su, Zhang Li said sincerely. Then, what must our Zhang clan do for you to hand over the legacy? Just take me to your ancestral shrine, Su Zimo said. Hearing this, Zhang Li didn't object. He led Su Zimo to the rear of the city. With many disciples guarding the area, the back of the city was clearly more heavily secured. The two came to a temple. Zhang Li slowly opened the door and entered. This temple had clearly existed for a very long time, but it was spotless inside, clearly cleaned often. In front stood three statues. Su Zimo didn't recognize the ones on the left and right, but the center statue was clearly the sword immortal Zhang Yun. The statue was vivid and lifelike, showing Zhang Yun in a white robe with golden trim, the robe fluttering behind him. His expression was stern, holding a purple long sword in his hand. The statue was captured mid-motion, as if drawing the sword. At that moment, Su Zimo slowly took out the sword seal. Sword intent from Wuging spread out from it, and the sword seal began to hum. It then turned into a sword light and rushed into Zhang Yun's statue. Immediately, the statue began to shake. A powerful sword intent burst from it. The sky-shaking sword intent surged upward, its mighty presence flooding the underground city. Ancestor, Zhang Li said emotionally, trembling as he knelt on a prayer mat. Not only Zhang Yun, even the people in the entire underground city felt this sword intent. Their swords began to hum uncontrollably. Many looked instinctively toward the direction of the ancestral shrine. Inside the shrine, three figures suddenly stepped into the air and arrived. All three were elderly men in identical blue sword robes. They were the three most respected elders of the Zhang clan. Patriarch, this is? The Grand Elder asked in disbelief. The ancestor's legacy has returned, Zhang Li replied excitedly. Inside the shrine, with the sword seal entering the statue, it now seemed almost alive. The statue's eyes looked sharply at the people below, sword intent flowing all around it. My descendants, Zhang Yun said with emotion. Ancestor. Everyone knelt down in unison. We've failed to carry on the glory you brought us. Our Jiang clan has fallen into such a pitiful state, Jiang Li said sorrowfully. Alas, part of the blame lies with me too, Jiang Yun said, shaking his head. Back when I tasked the family with guarding the seal, I knew this day would eventually come. Ancestor, how are things in the outer heavens? Can you not return? The second elder asked from the side. Jiang Yun shook his head slightly and said, You all go out first. I have something to say to this young Master Su. As for our Jiang clan's affairs, let me think of a solution. Hearing this, the Jiang clan members all looked deeply at Su Zimo. They then bowed again and respectfully left. Once only Su Zimo and Jiang Yun remained in the shrine. Jiang Yun spoke first. Thank you for bringing my legacy back. We both got what we needed. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. Now, can you tell me the news about the Void Spirit Monkey? In the Void Valley, one of the 10 forbidden grounds, such legendary era creatures still live. Jiang Yun nodded and said, I once went there to retrieve some void wood and fought those beasts, so I can confirm it. I will go. Su Zimo nodded slightly. There's one more thing I'd like to ask for your help with, if I may? Jiang Yun hesitated for a moment and asked again. You want me to help the Jiang clan? Su Zimo smiled. Yes, if you're willing, when you reach the outer heavens in the future, I will repay this favor, Jiang Yun said solemnly. Chapter 475 Jiang Dianfeng. The matters of the outer heavens can wait until I get there. Su Zimo shook his head and refused. I still have things to do, and I don't want to waste too much time here. All right then. Jiang Yun didn't press him. At that moment, a loud boom suddenly rang out not far away. Su Zimo heard someone shouting from outside. Someone is attacking our formation. I'll go take a look, Su Zimo said to Jiang Yun before walking out of the ancestral shrine. He could tell that Jiang Yun was only a remnant soul now. His true body was in the outer heavens, and he had no combat power. After exiting the shrine, Su Zimo saw that the entire Jiang clan's underground city had fallen into chaos. What's going on? Su Zimo asked Jiang Li. We may have been discovered, Jiang Li said with a serious expression. When I brought you here, someone likely followed us. At that time, in the outer sword-casting manner, Qing Baihe's expression was grim as he looked at the 3 figures in the sky. They were the sect masters of the 3 sects. The people of the sword-casting manor had all gathered together, and Qing Baihe shouted angrily, You 3 sects are going too far. Hand over the members of the Jiang clan, and we might spare you, Jenny Hai said coldly. Otherwise, we'll dig 3 feet into the ground and bury all of you here. I don't know what you're talking about, Qing Baihe replied angrily and fearfully. You're just greedy for our sword-casting manor and want to take it for yourselves. Say whatever you like, Heaven Edge snorted. The 3 of them were surrounded by surging spirit force, and their Empyrean Meridian realm aura spread out in all directions. Spirit force gathered around them and formed a giant hand, which reached toward Qing Baihe. Tell everyone to scatter and head down the mountain, Qing Baihe said solemnly to the people around him. Then he leapt into the air, sword in hand, and slashed toward the giant hand. Although Qing Baihe's sword intent was impressive, he was only at the Imperial Meridian realm. When the hand struck, he could only block it briefly before being blown away. With disheveled hair, Qing Baihe got up from the ground, his expression serious as he stared at the 3 figures in the sky. Baihe, step back. At that moment, Jiang Li appeared with a group of people. Su Zimo followed closely behind. Master, didn't I have someone bring a message telling you to leave quickly? Qing Baihe said anxiously. They won't let us leave, Jiang Li said calmly, shaking his head. Instead of running endlessly, we might as well make a final stand. Patriarch Jiang, it's been a long time. Heaven Edge laughed loudly from the side. What's wrong? Tired of being a coward hiding in a shell? It's been so many years, and you still haven't given up. Is being someone else's dog really that great? Jiang Li snorted coldly. When the Blood Rune race breaks free, do you think people like you will have a good ending? You're nothing but tools. That's still better than being someone who's already dying, Jenny Hai snorted. Spirit force surged around him as he charged at Zhang Li. The two Empyrean Meridian Realm powerhouses began battling, space around them fracturing in layers. For a while, neither could gain the upper hand. Heaven Edge laughed at Swordless beside him. "Let's go kill his clansmen. Better wait a bit." Swordless shook his head, advising. "The Zhang clan's ancestor hasn't appeared yet. We should be cautious. If he won't come out, then we'll force him out." Heaven Edge snorted. Red spirit force surged around him, and endless flames filled the sky. As the searing fire dyed the sky red, a loud rumbling echoed above. The sea of flames condensed into fireballs. Like a meteor shower, hundreds of fireballs rained from the sky. It looked as if they were going to flatten the entire sword-casting mountain. As the fireballs fell, rumbling sounds continued to echo all around. The mountain top was bombarded with craters, and the flames burned the surrounding vegetation. Blazing fires lit up the entire mountain in a fiery red. Bastard! Seeing this, everyone, whether from the Zhang clan or sword-casting manor, was enraged. But with two Empyrean Meridian Realm powerhouses in the sky, none dared to step forward. As the fireballs came crashing down again, a sword suddenly tore through the void. It slashed from deep within the void. A sword from the east shone across the heavens, and as it fell, all the fireballs in the sky were instantly wiped out. Everyone's eyes followed the long sword and saw a figure stepping through the air. The old man had an immortal air, with a white beard and a white robe. He held a heavy white sword in his hand, and each step he took left deep imprints in the void. Ancestor Zhang Dianfeng. Seeing the old man arrive, the Zhang clan members shouted excitedly. The only Zhang clan ancestor to reach the immortal path in thousands of years. Once hailed as the one most likely to inherit the Sword Immortal's legacy. Though he ultimately failed, his talent still left others in the dust. Ever since Zhang Dianfeng personally went to suppress the seal, the Zhang clan hadn't seen him again. There were even rumors that he died in the sealed land. Now seeing him appear again, how could they not be thrilled? "Mighty ancestor!" Some people were already shouting. As Zhang Dianfeng walked step by step, endless sword intent echoed through the void. The surrounding space was filled with sword energy, and the heavy sword vibrated before him. Ripples spread through the air. "With injuries that severe back then, you're still alive?" Heaven Edge said solemnly. "Sorry to disappoint you," Zhang Dianfeng replied calmly. "Doesn't matter. Even if you show up now, you'll still die." Heaven Edge laughed. "You're not enough. Let your master behind you come out," Zhang Dianfeng said indifferently. "No need," Heaven Edge snorted. At this moment, Jiani Hai and Zhang Li also stopped fighting, stepping back and watching each other warily. The three enemies were now surrounded by a blood-red mist. Screams echoed from within the mist. A heavy stench of blood filled the air, and terrifying skull-like faces formed within the mist. The mist then began to cover the three men's bodies, slowly seeping into them. "Ah!" Painful screams came from their mouths. As the mist spread, their faces twisted, and their bodies transformed in strange, unnatural ways. They rolled in the air, appearing in great pain and horror. Before long, the appearance of the three had completely changed. They looked like three monsters, slowly rising from the void. Chapter 476 3000 Years of Sword Intent. A blood mist spread over the surface of the three figures' bodies, and their size doubled. Their muscles bulged, and their skin turned a dark purplish color. Their hands transformed into claw-like shapes, with fingernails dozens of centimeters long. "This is..." Zhang Li watched with a grave expression. The three figures roared in the air, and their aura surged from the Empyrean Meridian Realm to the God Meridian Realm in one leap. Although the 8th Meridian Gate wasn't opened, their power had already reached the God Meridian level. "Those who sell their souls are no longer human," Zhang Dianfeng said with a deep gaze. "Forcing their strength upward like this only destroys their path in martial arts." "Ancestor, your injuries," Zhang Li said worriedly. "It's nothing." Zhang Dianfeng shook his head slightly. At that moment, the three figures charged at Jiang Dianfeng simultaneously. Surrounded by the blood mist, their auras were overwhelming. Each step they took shook the heavens and the earth. An immense pressure rose around them, and the space beneath their feet shattered. The power of the God Meridian realm is a leap in strength. As all three attacked at once, brilliant immortal light spread out from Jiang Dianfeng's body. His hands turned into giant palms that could cover the sky, clashing directly with the three attackers. A massive boom echoed. The surrounding space collapsed in large chunks, and an intense wave of spirit force spread out from the four figures as the center. Jiang Dianfeng remained standing in place, unmoved, while the three opponents were blown back. Immortal light radiated from Jiang Dianfeng, though his face turned slightly pale. He knew that although the three had been knocked back, they weren't seriously injured. The three slowly stood up from the ground and let out furious roars toward the sky. Jian Yihai swung his long sword, releasing sword intent like a sea. Endless sword energy spread from him, gathering slowly in the sky. Heaven Edge unleashed 7 swords at once, turning into 7 beams of sword light in different colors. These beams surged across the sky, and wherever they passed, space was torn apart. As for Swordless, the last of the three, he was a sword himself. The sharpness and purity of the sword aura around him was extremely rare. When his sword aura spread, it even suppressed the sword intent of the other two to some extent. The empty sword sheath on his back trembled continuously. The three unleashed their sword intent again and charged at Jiang Dianfeng. Jiang Dianfeng's gaze was deep, and he raised his heavy sword across his chest. He swung it slowly, seemingly with great effort. But the moment that sword was swung, its unstoppable force erased the space in front of him completely. As the sword wiped out everything ahead, the sword intent from the three attackers was instantly extinguished. The heavy sword struck down, and amid the three's screams, they were sent flying again. The three were now covered in blood, looking absolutely miserable. "Mighty Ancestor!" The Jiang clan crowd below shouted in excitement at the sight. No matter how strong the three sects are, without an arcane immortal realm ancestor, it's all meaningless. I say we should come out openly and rebuild the Jiang clan, instead of hiding in this underground city. What can the three sects really do to us? I agree, but unlike the other clansmen, Jiang Li watched with concern. Just then, Jiang Dianfeng's body trembled, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. The blood splattered onto his heavy sword and then onto the ground. Jiang Dianfeng stabbed the sword into the ground and gripped it with both hands. He used it to keep himself from collapsing. His figure looked thin and unsteady. "What's wrong with the ancestor?" The Jiang clan crowd started to panic. The injuries he suffered in the sealed land years ago never healed. "It's likely they never will," Zhang Li said, shaking his head and sighing. Su Zimo could tell that Jiang Dianfeng's life essence was damaged, and his soul flame also seemed suppressed. He was just barely clinging to life. Surviving was already hard enough. Fighting was nearly impossible. This scene did not go unnoticed by Jian Yihai. He looked pleased and shouted, "That old guy's hurt. Looks like he was bluffing earlier. If we keep pressing, he'll fall soon. Today I'll kill this immortal path powerhouse." Heaven Edge laughed heartily. "Old man, if you had stayed hidden, we might not have been able to do anything. But since you had to come out and play hero, let's see what it feels like to kill someone at the immortal path." Swordless remained silent, his expression complicated as he looked at the people below. Good and evil will be repaid in the end. The Blood Rune race's target are the entire primordial heartlands. Jiang Dianfeng said sternly, "Even if my Jiang clan is destroyed today, I believe thousands more will rise to take our place. You will meet your end eventually." Hearing his words, Jian Yihai and Heaven Edge just laughed loudly. "Then go to hell clinging to your noble beliefs." Only Swordless' pupils shrank slightly, and he muttered under his breath, "There will be retribution. Everyone, let's attack together and kill this old bastard," Jian Yihai suggested. "Once we wipe out the Jiang clan, we can go ask Lord Ming for our reward." As soon as he finished speaking, his aura grew stronger. His life essence appeared behind him. It was a divine sword reaching to the heavens. This divine sword was nearly 100 meters tall, floating behind him in the sky, exuding sharp, killing energy. As it appeared, it began to devour all nearby space. With Jian Yihai's control, the enormous sword hovered high in the sky, preparing to strike down at Jiang Dianfeng. Behind Heaven Edge floated 7 illusory swords, the 7 emotions swords. They were born from the 7 human emotions and desires, the true essence he had comprehended. As the 7 swords hummed around him, his expression turned cold and emotionless. The 7 swords tore through space, moving faster than lightning. As for Swordless, his aura was even more terrifying, because the Swordless Mountain had a secret technique called Gathering Intent. Its function was to condense sword intent, and frighteningly, it could do so endlessly. That's why every disciple of the Swordless sect carried an extremely heavy sword intent, because they all cultivated it. The longer the sword intent was condensed, the stronger it became. It was said that this secret technique didn't originally belong to the Swordless Mountain, but to a famous rogue cultivator from the northern continent. He condensed sword intent for 3,000 years, and when he finally fought, he unleashed all 3,000 years of sword intent at once. Chapter 477, Chu Shanhe is no more in this world. That scene, anyone who witnessed that battle would never forget it for the rest of their lives. Mountains and rivers trembled. The world lost its color. Saying it shocked heaven and earth, moved gods and ghosts, would not be an exaggeration. That sword strike amazed the mortal world and became that man's legendary battle. Later, for unknown reasons, this secret technique ended up in the hands of the Swordless Mountain and became their most guarded secret. The greatest flaw of the technique is that the sword intent it condenses can only be used once. In other words, no matter how long you've spent condensing your sword intent, once you release it, you can't use it again. You must start condensing from scratch to use it another time. And condensing sword intent takes time. It definitely can't be done in a short period. Just like that rogue cultivator before, after unleashing 3,000 years of sword intent, all his efforts disappeared in an instant. Now, as sword intent surrounded Swordless, the energy he had condensed began slowly releasing from his body as the core. Brother Swordless is using his trump card this time, Heaven Edge commented from the side. Swordless was the founder of the Swordless Mountain. It's said that ever since the sect obtained this secret technique, Swordless was the first to practice it. Since he began, he had never released it once. To the Swordless Mountain, this condensed sword intent was more like a last resort, life-saving move. They wouldn't let years of effort go to waste unless facing absolute danger. Brother Swordless sword intent must have been building for hundreds of years, Jian Yihai said with a smile. I wonder how powerful it will be. I never thought I'd get to witness this today. As the sword intent around Swordless grew thicker, Jiang Dianfeng's eyes began to show concern. The pressure from that sword intent grew heavier, like dark clouds, lightning, thunder, and a looming storm pressing down on everything. The speed of the sword intent's release accelerated, quickly covering the entire sky. Swordless had no sword, because he himself was a sword. His sword intent had reached a critical threshold. Veins began bulging on his skin, and cracks started appearing, as if his body could break at any moment. At that moment, all 3 launched their attacks simultaneously. Compared to Swordless strike, the other 2's attacks looked dim and pale. This sword strike represented hundreds of years of effort. It was the most brilliant moment of this technique. As the sword fell, the world flipped upside down. Sun and moon lost their light, rivers flowed backward. The empty sky seemed to shatter into endless fragments. The sun and clouds were split apart. All the space below crumbled, explosions roaring in every direction. The sword-casting mountain below was cleaved in 2, collapsing into dust amid deafening booms. This sword strike stunned everyone. But to everyone's shock, the target of the sword wasn't Jiang Dianfeng. It was Jian Yihai and Heaven Edge. The 2 instantly realized this and tried to escape, but the sword's range was too wide. Its suppressive power was too overwhelming, They couldn't avoid it. Swordless, are you insane? Heaven Edge shouted in panic. We're on the same side. If you betray us, aren't you afraid of Lord Ming's punishment? You're insane. Completely insane. Ignoring their yelling, Swordless stared ahead, his voice solemn. My name isn't Swordless. My real name is Chu Shanhe. What are you doing? Jian Yihai shouted. We didn't do anything to you. Why would you do this? I've done too many things against my conscience. I'm tired, Swordless said, his tone strange. I don't want to be a pawn of the Blood Rune race anymore. As the sword fell, the screams of Heaven Edge and Jian Yihai rang out, then stopped. The sky converged into a single point, and the endless sword intent seemed to refine the void itself. A mighty sword force cut through the heavens, annihilating the entire space in its path. That entire section of space collapsed. The sword fell. A breeze blew softly, lifting his hair from his forehead. The sword intent he had condensed for hundreds of years slowly faded away. Swordless stood silently in the sky, staring into the horizon, lost in thought. The day I was born, my father held me and looked out the window toward the distant sky. He said, "The rivers and mountains are as beautiful as a painting. One day you will roam this land." My parents were both frail and sickly. When I was young, they passed away. I grew up eating meals from every household in the village. I admired those martial cultivators who could fly and vanish at will. But unfortunately, I was born in a mortal village where no one knew how to cultivate except for a few farming tricks taught by the village instructor. I heard that in the north there was a sword domain, a sword there could slice across the 9 heavens. Ordinary people could go to the sword domain and receive a sword and learn sword techniques for free. That year I was 16. The spring breeze was gentle, the sunlight perfect, willows swaying under the moon. I packed my bag and set out on my journey. Swordless remembered his past, silently daydreaming in midair. The sword sheath on his back trembled. It seemed to feel his emotions and cried out in sorrow. I entered the sword domain, stepped into the sword tower, took a sword, and learned swordsmanship. But later I found out it was all just that. For a rogue cultivator to make a name for himself was like a peasant trying to become a king, hard and full of obstacles. It was simply too difficult. Flickering swords, constant schemes, I saw through the ways of the world. I wanted to return to my village, the village that fed and raised me, and live the rest of my life in peace, away from worldly affairs. After years of wandering, the white-robed youth returned to his village. But what greeted him was an empty ruin. The village had been destroyed. The villagers had vanished. After much investigation, he learned that a few disciples from a nearby sect had come down from the mountain. One of them had taken a liking to a village girl and tried to abduct her. The villagers resisted. So those disciples slaughtered the entire village, burned the bodies, and destroyed the place. That day, it rained heavily. The white-robed youth sat on a stone in the ruins. He sat there for 7 days and nights. He wanted to take revenge on that sect, but with his meager strength, he had no ability to fight back. "Do you want revenge?" Suddenly, a voice sounded behind him. His hair stood on end, his whole body froze. He slowly turned around and saw the creature that would change his life forever. He got his revenge. He wiped out the entire sect. The corpses piled as high as a mountain. But he also understood that the price of revenge was that his fate no longer belonged to himself. He followed that monster away. No one cared what had happened there. 10 years later, the man named Swordless founded the Swordless Mountain. And Chu Shanhe no longer existed in this world. Chapter 478, Blood Rune Beast emerges. After the founding of the Swordless Mountain, Swordless did many things against his conscience. You could say that under the orders of that monster, he lived every day in torment for the sake of breaking the seal of the Blood Rune race. His conscience was not entirely lost. He often remembered why he began cultivating in the first place. Over the years, he had more than repaid the debt to the creature that helped him destroy a sect. Now he was tired, and he didn't want to go on like this anymore. Especially after Jiang Dianfeng's words, "Good and evil will be repaid in the end." he became more certain of his decision. The wind gently blew, pulling him out of his sorrow from hundreds of years. In the distant sky, black mist began to gather. Swordless looked toward the black mist, and the sword sheath on his back began to tremble again. "I knew you pathetic humans couldn't be trusted," a furious voice roared out from within the black mist. "Those who are not of our kind must be destroyed." In just a moment, the black mist spread across half the horizon. Everyone looked into the mist with heavy expressions. The sun was blocked, and the entire world seemed to darken. Clouds churned within the mist, and a figure slowly emerged, pushing aside the fog with both hands. He wore an oversized black robe that covered his whole body. As the black-robed figure stepped out, he tore off the robe. He stood in the air, and only then could everyone see his face. It was a monster with a red-purple body, every muscle clearly defined. Its two eyes were wide open with blood-red pupils. Its features were mostly human-like, but many aspects were distinctly unnatural and bizarre. When it ripped off the robe, its blood-red eyes stared deeply at Swordless. It said, "I brought you out of the ruins back then. I helped you get your revenge. You've really let me down. All these years I've done enough for you. That counts as repaying the debt," Swordless replied. "From now on, we owe each other nothing. You really think that by killing those two useless fools, you people can just walk away today?" The monster sneered. As it finished speaking, a terrifying aura erupted from its body. Thunderous explosions echoed through the clouds. Immortal pressure surged around it, and spiritual energy flowed like a mighty river. The monster's body began to grow. Its hands turned into claws, and even casual swipes tore open space. Its eyes became even more terrifying. Its face looked sinister, grinning with bared fangs. Its ears were enormous, like a pair of folding screens. Hair began to grow rapidly across its entire body, and within moments it was completely covered and several times larger. "So this is a blood-rune beast?" Su Zimo muttered with interest. As the monster fully revealed its true form, immortal aura surrounded it, and murderous energy radiated. The surrounding space kept collapsing and reforming. "Be careful. The blood-rune beast's offense and defense are terrifying at the same realm," Jiang Dianfeng said seriously to Zhang Li. "You organize the family's retreat, I'll hold it off." "Let's fight together," Swordless said to Jiang Dianfeng. Jiang Dianfeng was surprised and paused for a moment. Then he nodded and said, "All right." The two rose into the sky and charged at the blood-rune beast. Jiang Dianfeng wielded his heavy sword, slashing down with crushing force. Swordless' entire body was wrapped in thousands of strands of sword energy, surrounding the beast and slicing through the air. The sound of swords clashing rang across the sky. But the monster calmly raised its right claw and swatted down. Jiang Dianfeng's heavy sword was sent flying. Swordless' sword aura had no effect at all. The monster breathed out, two white jets of air spraying from its nostrils. Its eyes locked coldly on Swordless. In that moment, its immortal aura surged even stronger, and it moved like an arrow. The next instant, it appeared in front of Swordless and struck with a claw. Swordless' body was sent flying, blood spraying everywhere. He didn't scream in pain, but his skin looked as if it would split open, covered in countless wounds. Jiang Dianfeng, whose sword had been knocked away, was also sent flying. He wiped blood from the corner of his mouth, his hands trembling as he gripped his sword. The old injuries inside him had worsened, and his life essence and spiritual energy were in chaos, reducing his combat power drastically. In just one exchange, the two of them could no longer hold on. "The opponent is too strong," Zhang Li said quietly. "You know the price of betraying me?" The monster ignored Jiang Dianfeng and slowly walked up to Swordless, speaking coldly. "Death, nothing more," Swordless said with a bitter smile. "I've been ready for that a long time. No, I'll trap you in the blood-rune race for centuries, let you truly experience the torment of our race," the monster said grimly, "until you die slowly and painfully in endless suffering." The monster grabbed Swordless in its giant claw and lifted him up, then turned its gaze to Jiang Dianfeng. With a mocking smile, it said, "Little rats of the Jiang clan, where do you think you're running?" The monster laughed wildly as it looked at the panicked Jiang clan on the mountain. Its massive claw, filled with overwhelming spiritual energy, slammed downward. With a deafening boom, the split sword-casting mountain shook violently. The ground cracked open in countless places. The Jiang clan members caught beneath the claw were all smashed into oblivion. But when the monster raised its claw, it noticed that one young man still stood unharmed. "That's enough. The show's over," Su Zimo said with a slight frown. "Who are you, kid?" the monster asked, lifting its head. The stench from its mouth was thick. Su Zimo didn't answer. He waved his right hand in the air. A spatial gate opened. A massive god beast stepped out slowly. As Chaos released its powerful arcane immortal realm beast aura, the monster finally frowned and looked at it seriously. "Desolate bloodline," the monster said with narrowed eyes. Chaos gave no response. Two massive wings unfurled behind it, covering the sky as it charged toward the monster. The wings cut through the shattered void and instantly reached the monster. Its claws locked onto the beast's claws and flung it away. Chaos was incredibly fast. Before the monster could react, its body was slammed into the foot of the mountain. It stood up, roaring furiously into the sky, and once again charged into battle with Chaos. The two monster-like beasts fought viciously, grappling and tearing at each other. They attacked in brutal, savage fashion, exchanging blow for blow. It was completely ferocious. Chapter 479, The 10 God Beasts. For a while, the two monsters were evenly matched. Zhang Li walked up to Su Zimo. He bowed respectfully and said, "Thank you, young Master Su, for helping us. It was the one who provoked me first." Su Zimo waved his hand and replied calmly. Jiang Dianfeng also walked over and quietly asked Zhang Li about Su Zimo's background, then bowed in gratitude as well. Only Swordless, with his heavily injured body, leaned silently against a stone on the mountain ruins, watching the battle in the sky. He ignored the blood flowing from his wounds and the pain, as if he couldn't feel anything at all. In the sky, the two monsters were fully locked in battle, fighting with everything they had. Even Chaos had suffered some injuries. Seeing this, Su Zimo realized the blood-rune beast still had plenty of fight left. He frowned slightly. Its toughness had exceeded his expectations. With a wave of his right hand, another spatial gate opened. A series of roars echoed from within the portal. One by one, beasts rushed out wildly from the gate. 9 beasts emerged. Qiongqi, Roar, Taotai, Dark Snake, Arcane Bird, Tao, Bian, Ice-Armored Horned Demon Dragon, and Ghost Carriage. When these 9 god beasts appeared, their combined aura blanketed the sky. The pressure was overwhelming and suppressed the entire area. Including Chaos, they made up the 10 god beasts of the Desolate Era. Su Zimo had trained them extensively in his True Destiny world, and thanks to past experience, they cultivated extremely fast. Though not yet at the Immortal Realm, they had all reached the God Meridian Realm. Under the development of the God World, the beast race established by Chaos had become a top-tier force. Truly blessed by nature. As the 9 desolate beasts appeared, the blood-rune beast was stunned. Chaos roared into the sky and shouted at it furiously. "I'll give you 2 choices, solo fight or group fight. 1 on 10. Or 10 on 1. The blood-rune beast took a small step back and roared fiercely at the 10 beasts. Then it turned and fled without looking back. Seeing this, Chaos couldn't let it escape. Its massive wings flapped, and it dove from the sky, grabbing the beast's back with its claws, leaving deep, bloody gashes. The other 9 god beasts charged all at once, surrounding and tearing into the blood-rune beast. The blood-rune beast roared in pain, fighting back with all its might, but its strength was no match for the combined force of 10 god beasts. Even 2 fists can't beat 4 hands, let alone 10 ancient beasts. Before long, its roars turned into painful cries. Its body was soaked in blood, and its resistance grew weaker. You just wait. When the blood rune race breaks the seal, none of you will escape. The beast howled. You're welcome to come for revenge. My name is Bailey Chungfeng. The Bailey Imperial clan of the Eastern Continent awaits you. Su Zimo declared boldly, full of righteousness. As his words fell, the blood rune beast screamed, and was torn to pieces by the 10 god beasts. Once they devoured its body, they returned to Su Zimo's true fate world. With the blood rune beast dead, the surroundings grew silent. The sky was blue and clear. A breeze blew gently from the mountain peak. Everyone finally let out a sigh of relief and collapsed on the ground, enjoying the brief peace. Zhang Li and Zhang Dianfeng walked over and bowed once more to Su Zimo. Thank you, young Master Su, for saving our Zhang clan. It was nothing. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. Young Master Su, I have an unworthy request. I don't know if I should say it, Zhang Dianfeng said. You've already said that much. You think I'll stop you from speaking? Su Zimo smiled. Go ahead. The seal on the blood rune realm is at its final stage. If the blood rune race really breaks free, the entire world will suffer. Zhang Dianfeng said. But our Zhang clan is weak. I'm seriously injured and don't have much time left. Meeting young Master Su today gave me hope again. Would you be willing to be the hero who saves the world from disaster? From now on, the Zhang clan will follow your lead and obey your every word. What does the world have to do with me? Su Zimo turned and asked plainly. With your strength, I believe someone like you must also have a sense of responsibility deep down. What you do in the future will be remembered for generations. People will even build statues of you and tell your story for centuries to come. Zhang Dianfeng said passionately. To stop the blood rune race and save the people of this world, that's a rare accomplishment, even in the imperial era. Su Zimo grinned and said, Sorry to disappoint you. I'm not that kind of man. Honestly, I'm selfish and petty. Aside from my family, I don't care whether others live or die. If I help them, it's because I'm kind. If I don't, no one has the right to judge me from a moral high ground. Plenty of people want to be heroes, go ask them. I'm just a regular guy. Let's part ways here. May we never meet again. After saying that, Su Zimo turned and left Swordcasting Mountain. Zhang Dianfeng stared at his back in a daze. He wanted to say something, but hesitated, and in the end, said nothing. Ancestor. Zhang Li walked over, hesitant to speak. I know what you want to say. Now that the 3 sects are without leaders, it's time for our Zhang clan to strike back. It's probably the last thing I can do for the family, Zhang Dianfeng said, gazing into the distance at Su Zimo's fading figure. He sighed. Where's the Zhang clan's way forward? Everything he had said earlier was just to appeal to Su Zimo's sense of righteousness, hoping to tie him to the Zhang clan's fate. Based on what Su Zimo had shown, he could only think of one phrase, limitless future. As for saving the world, the Zhang clan couldn't even protect itself. How could they save others? Let the people of the world save themselves. He hadn't expected Su Zimo to be so blunt in his rejection. But there's always a path ahead. Who can say what the future holds? After leaving Swordcasting Mountain, Su Zimo was ready to depart from the northern continent and head to the Endless Sky Sea to search for the solar illumination. His relationship with the Zhang clan was nothing more than mutual benefit. Chapter 480 Dragon-Slaying Hero. Zhang Yun told him the location of the Void Spirit Monkey, and in return he gave the Zhang clan the legacy. That was all. As for anything beyond that, Su Zimo made it clear he was busy. His god world was not yet perfected. The solar illumination hadn't been found, and the Infernal Lord's secret remained unsolved. How could he go play savior now? After leaving Swordcasting Mountain, Su Zimo planned to return to Myriad Sword City. From there, he would use a teleportation formation to head to the border city of Seaside City, on the edge of the northern continent. Seaside City sat at the far edge of the continent, the closest city to the Endless Sky Sea. Once there, he could continue on foot to reach the Endless Sky Sea. After traveling for a full month, Su Zimo finally arrived in Seaside City. From there, using a teleportation formation, he began another uneventful journey through space. Su Zimo planned to return to the true martial sacred ground after finding the solar illumination. He had been wandering for years and didn't even know how long it had been since he last went back. Because of the vast distance between Myriad Sword City and Seaside City, even using teleportation formations took nearly another month. Myriad Sword City was located in the Sword Domain, while Seaside City was governed by the ocean-covering empire. When Su Zimo stepped out of the teleportation formation and set foot on Seaside City's land, it was already deep autumn. The sky was overcast, a dull gray. Occasional autumn winds blew, and distant mountains were covered in layers of mist. It all looked like an ink painting nature full of mystery. Autumn brought frequent rains, drizzling and continuous. On Su Zimo's first day in Seaside City, light rain began to fall. He booked a room at an inn in the city and stood by the window, watching the street below. Seaside City wasn't large. Being on the border, it actually felt a bit underdeveloped. The dragon-slaying hero Li Zhizhong is back. Come quick, everyone. A loud shout from the street caught Su Zimo's attention. The street had been relatively empty because of the rain, but now it was packed with people. In the light, misty rain, a tall and burly man slowly pulled a massive cart down the street. Raindrops fell on the man's body as he moved slowly and steadily. Then, countless townspeople emerged from both sides of the street, some with umbrellas, others braving the rain bareheaded. They all rushed to surround the cart. Su Zimo stepped out of the inn to take a look. When he reached the street, he saw that the white cloth covering the cart had been pulled off. Inside was a massive black flood dragon. Its body was bloody and mangled, with not a single intact spot. The strong stench of blood filled half the street. Li Zhizhong killed another evil dragon. People nearby whispered in admiration. Yes, one day all these evil dragons will be wiped out. Then we in Seaside City can finally live in peace. Everyone, go get your food. The dragon-slaying hero needs a meal. As they spoke, the crowd scattered and rushed back home. Not long after, people emerged from every house lining the street. Each held a basket filled with food, steamed buns, grains, rice, and all kinds of snacks. Not just people on that street, residents from all over Seaside City rushed over. Each brought some of their own food. Zhizhong, eat ours first. I just steamed these buns. They're still warm. Try our food. Our meat pies are made from wild bamboo goat. I saved some just for you. Amid the chatter, Li Zhizhong gave a simple, honest smile. He put down the cart, sat directly on the wet ground without a complaint, and took the food passed to him, eating in silence. Hundreds of townspeople had gathered. Everyone brought something, so it was a massive pile of food. But Li Zhizhong's appetite seemed endless. He kept eating and never appeared full. He devoured food non-stop for about an hour, and the baskets were nearly emptied. Are you full yet? If not, I'll go get more, someone asked nearby. Li Zhizhong patted his belly and smiled. His teeth were bright white. After finishing, his stomach didn't look any different. He slowly walked to the cart, took a deep breath, and opened his eyes wide. His whole aura shifted. His already well-defined muscles bulged even more, rippling with strength. He gripped the dragon's corpse on the cart with both hands and roared loudly. Every bone and tendon on his body stood out sharply. With a mighty lift, he raised the nearly 100-meter-long dragon high into the air. Su Zimo watched and commented, "Innate divine strength." Li Zhizhong hoisted the dragon and walked step by step toward the open space ahead. Each step was forceful. The granite paving beneath him creaked with every move. Up ahead, just off the street, was a large open square. In the center of the square stood a triangular frame. Li Zhizhong walked to the frame, gently placed the dragon on it, and closed the frame over it, perfectly locking the flood dragon's body in the hollow center. Oh, it's time to butcher the dragon. The townspeople cheered joyfully. They didn't care about the increasing autumn rain. Everyone rushed home and returned with large basins. Li Zhizhong had a small knife at his waist. It wasn't large, more like a butcher's blade. When the blade left its sheath, it made a crisp clang sound. A sharp edge gleamed coldly, unmistakably lethal. With a clean stroke, Li Zhizhong began slicing dragon meat into small pieces as easily as cutting chives. Each surrounding resident received a piece of flood dragon meat. Blood from the corpse flowed down from the frame onto the square and into the street. The stench of blood filled the air. But most of the blood was collected in basins. It was considered extremely nourishing. Luckily, it was the rainy season. Autumn rains quickly washed away the strong smell. Still, the residents didn't mind. Each of them looked at the piece of flood dragon meat they received with joy, then happily returned home. As the crowd in the square thinned, the entire dragon had almost been divided. Li Zhizhong's knife work was incredibly practiced.